Welcome in, everybody. Blessed Sabbath, everybody. I am Elder Nathaniel, House Judah, International Fellowship Church. And to my side here is Taza Doc. And we have another lesson for you today. Part 2 of the Choosing Well series, Preparing for Marriage. Preparing for Marriage. This is going to be another outstanding lesson. But first of all, I want to send greetings to our family out in Sierra Leone, Philippines, and soon to be established will be Panama. So greetings to our brother and sister over there in Panama, Brother Brandon and his family. Bless you all. And Bishop Michael and Elder Johannes over there in Sierra Leone. Bless you all. Remember, everyone, to like, comment, and subscribe to the lesson. We're not going to hold you on any longer. Let's get started. Anything you want to say? Talk about
regarding the registering for the website baptisms. Anyone around the world is interested in becoming a part of this ministry, become baptized into the church. Go give us an email at housejudah.elders@aol.com. It'll send a message directly to the elder. Put baptism dash your location so we know where we need to go, know what areas have priority, so that way we can get to as many areas as possible and get people baptized into this ministry and into this work. Okay. We also have tithes and donations. For those if you've been blessed by this ministry, watching online, everything we do as far as this ministry goes takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, and a lot of what, like the streaming service and everything, all that costs money. So if you're being blessed by this ministry, blessed by the work that we're doing, please give to the ministry. See the Cash App right here above head and up here. If you don't have Cash App, give us an email again at that same email, housejudah.elders@aol.com. Let us know your location, and we'll let you know what other ways we have for you to be able to contribute to this work.
Yeah, we have Zelle as well.
Yeah. All right. So you ready to go?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay, yeah. So as of recently, on pretty much majority of the platforms that we're going through, we are experiencing somewhat of a shadow ban. Okay. Which means that people are being unsubscribed and their notifications are being shut off. So make sure that you go to wherever you follow us, whether it be on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Make sure that you're still subscribed, that you're still following us, and that your notifications are turned on. We've been hearing that people have not been getting notifications where we're going live and we're posting. Yeah. Okay, so definitely make sure that you go in and do that. All right. Is there anything else?
I think we got everything so far.
All right. So let's jump right in. Okay. We have a long one, so we're gonna try to get this thing rolling pretty quick. Okay. So in the previous lesson, we discussed the purpose and the psychology of man and woman and their purpose together, right? So basically going into not only the creation of man and woman, but what they were created to do, how they were created, and how each of their purposes in being created come together, right? How those things meet up, how they fit with one another. And we also went over ideally what one should be looking for in a husband or in a wife, right? What are the standards that person has to meet to be in a position to become a husband or a wife, right? This week, in this week's lesson, let's get the cover for the second part of the Choosing Well series. We have preparing for marriage, right? And the specific title that I came up with a little bit later for the title was The Marriage Journey, where you'll start, end, and the challenges along the way, right? Why do I say that? Because this is a process. This is something that's going to continue over time. It takes time, right? We went over that in the last lesson. The actual process to becoming married takes time, right? So today we're going to be going over the marriage journey, where you'll start, end, and the challenges along the way. Okay. So this week we're going to discuss the preliminary requirements for marriage, as well as the steps and challenges leading up to marriage. Right. First, we start off with the requirement with the requirements for a man or for a woman to become married, right? The first requirement is obviously age. So we're going to go into the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is the Damascus document, page 160. We've gone here before. We've gone here before in the lesson that we did on path, purpose, and legacy. So we're going to be revisiting this particular section here. So if you can go ahead and grab that for me, Elder.
I want you to first address what happened to your hair.
I cut it. It was time. Needed a fresh start. A lot of things been going on with me in particular, with the ministry, with everything that's been going on. So I felt in my spirit that I needed a fresh start, that I needed to start over. And I decided I went in, started cutting them. Next thing you know, they were gone. So maybe one day they'll make a return. But as of right now, we're starting over. Okay. We're in a new place now than we were when I first got them. I'm in a new place than I was when I first got them. So now that we're in this transition period, I felt that it was time. All right, but it's still me. Ain't no clone. I know some people gonna get on YouTube, make a video like, this Taj is not the same Taj from before. He's been cloned. Nah, I've been cloned. I just cut my hair. That's all. All right. So let's go to the Dead Sea Scrolls Damascus document, page 160. All right.
Damascus document, page 160.
Yeah.
At the age of 20 years, he shall be enrolled, that he may enter upon the allotted duties in the midst of the family and be joined to
in the midst of what?
Of his family. And be joined to the holy congregation.
So two things happen when a man turns 20 years old. Two things happen, right? He is enrolled that he may enter his allotted duties, right, in the midst of his family. So this means that he is now in a position where he will begin to start a family. How do you start a family? Marriage. Okay. So now he's taking up the duty of becoming married, right? And he also becomes joined to the holy congregation. So prior to, remember the process here, right? When you're born, and then you turn 3 years old, when you're weaned from the milk, then you go from 3 to 10, then you go from 10 to 12. When you turn 12 is when you actually begin to go into the temple and start learning the intricacies of the law, right? When you turn 10 years old. 12 is when you become baptized, the age of accountability. And from that point to the time when you're 20 years old is when you finally begin to start learning the intricacies as far as the details of how matters are judged. Why is that important? Because you will be judging the matters of your household and eventually judging the matters of the people who serve under you. Right? So this is why when we talk about a man being ready to be married and a man being ready to take up office in the same text. Because if you're ready to take up an office in the church, then you're ready to become married. The two go hand in hand, right? Because the same way that you lead your household, if you can't lead your household, what did Paul say? If you can't lead your household, then you can't lead what? The ministry. Because the two go hand in hand. You have to be able to lead both. So when when the eldership looks at a man and we say, okay, well, that brother's ready, that brother right there, he's ready to assume the position of at least hearing the judgments. Imagine it like being a juror. He's not participating in actual judging the matters. He's actually watching the bishops, the deacons, the elders judge matters accordingly. So now he's seeing, okay, this is the situation, and this is how the elders, bishops, and deacons handled it. So now he's actually seeing the matters being judged. Not actually participating, just hearing it. Right? Read.
He shall not approach a woman to know her by lying with her before he is fully 20 years old.
Why?
When he shall know good and evil.
When he shall know good and evil. Right? So none of these things could be done before the age of 20, before you're fully 20 years old, which means you cannot become married, nor could you take up office within the church before you were fully 20 years old, right? And this comes with a complete and rounded understanding of good and evil, and has learned and matured enough to take up a leadership role in his household and in hearing the judgments in the matters of the people. Put a 1 in the chat if you're following me. So essentially, what we're seeing here is a standard that's being set. For men, age does not determine whether or not they are equipped for marriage, as some do not have a grasp on the law or the intricacies and the spirit of it. I'm going to say that again. Some men at the age of 20, majority actually in this time, are not properly equipped with the knowledge and the understanding of the law and the spirit of the law to properly be able to judge matters. However, take a step back. Let's look at when this particular standard was set for the people. The children who were raised in the truth, these people were raised in this culture. That means that from the time that they were born to the time that they turned 20 years old, they had been inundated with the culture, tradition, and knowledge of the scriptures fully from the time that they're born to the time that they're 20 years old. This means that everything that we're trying to gain now, just coming into the truth, the children have had for years and years and years. At this point, 2 decades. So that means that an 18-year-old child who grew up from the time that they're 1 to the time that they're 18, you may have been in the truth for 10 years and you still don't have as much knowledge or understanding as they did. Meaning that at that particular age, they were more spiritually and knowledge based. They're more advanced than you were at the age of 18 than you are now. You following me? So now when we look at the age standard, that age standard is primarily held for those who are raised in the truth. This means that for babies like the ones that we have in here, like the ones that are being born throughout the 4 corners of the earth, we have a deacon who has twins over in Sierra Leone. They have the opportunity to raise their children fully in the knowledge of the scriptures and in who they are, identity. So when they become fully 20 years old, they're going to be further along than, say, I was at the age of 20. Fair? So the standard by which we determine when a man is prepared to be married is 2 things. 1, you have to be at least 20 years of age. And second, you have to have a full and well-rounded understanding of good and evil. Does that mean that you're perfect? No. But you have to be able to understand the basics, the basics of good and evil, how to divide one from the 2. Because if you don't know the difference between what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's evil, you cannot, not only can you not lead people, but you can't lead a household. The standard's not established. So wisdom is more important on the man's side than age. Go ahead and read.
I'm going to back up a little bit. He shall not approach a woman to know her by lying with her before he is fully 20 years old, when he shall know good and evil. And thereafter, he shall be accepted when he calls to witness the judgments of the law.
And thereafter. So after these things have taken place, right? That means that at the age of 20, a man of full maturity, knowing the difference between good and evil, it has become married first and then taken up an office. Read.
Back up a little bit more again. He shall be accepted when he calls to witness the judgments of the law and shall be allowed to assist in the hearing of the judgment.
So now it says that he is accepted when he calls to witness, to see, to hear, to listen to the judgments of the law, how people judge matters according to the scriptures, right? And then he shall be allowed to assist at the hearing of judgments, right? So now he can begin to say, okay, well, okay, so elder, I know you said this about this, but the scriptures say this. So how do we handle this situation since it's a little bit different than the last situation that we saw? So now you're actually able to speak in the presence of those who are judging the matters. Does that mean that you have any effect on the judgment of the matters? No. But now you can begin to educate yourself as far as the intricacies of the judging of those matters, why those matters were judged the way that they were. So as for women in this case, age is a monumental factor. As opposed to the men, where it's majority, where age is the benchmark, absolutely. But you may not be able to become married because you aren't spiritually mature enough at the age of 20, right? But for women, the age standard is monumental. Majority of women's learning and guidance comes from her husband, right? So as far as the knowledge of and the understanding of the scriptures and good and evil that she's obtained from her father, she's now required to obtain those things from her husband. So the same standard that men are being held to become married, women are not being held to, because you have need to be taught. Her maturity, as well as her ability to manage and complete the tasks of daily life, determines whether or not she is ready to become a wife after the age of 20. What does that mean? The woman's burden is different from the man's, meaning that she has to know how to keep a family. There's certain things that she must know how to do, right? If she can't keep a house, if she doesn't know how to take care of children, if she doesn't know how to do business, how to handle money, how to do transactions, right? If she doesn't know how to look at a bank account and look through the bank statements and understand what's going on there, if she doesn't understand finances, she's not prepared to be married. These are all things that that women back in the scripture in the biblical times were being taught throughout their entire lives. Why? Because they were following their mothers and watching them do it. Right? So the standard for women and the standard for men are a little bit different. Men, maturity is required. Knowledge is required. The age is required. Discernment is required. For women, all that's required is maturity and understanding of how to complete adult tasks. Because the learning and the teaching is going to come along the way. Keep in mind, she can't be inundated with too much information prior to, because the standard for her husband's house may be different from the standard of her father's house. And the last thing that you want to have to do is go into a new environment and relearn everything. Following? Let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 29, verse 22.
Ecclesiastes chapter 29, verse 22.
Mm-hmm.
Better is the life of a poor man in a mean cottage than a delicate fare in another man's house.
So a man who seeks to be married must have the resources available to purchase a home for he and his wife to live in, his future wife to live in. That's the next standard. At no point should a man that has no way of affording a home, or no means of buying a property or getting into his own place, be in a courtship situation or in a marriage situation. Right? So the fact of the matter is go back and read that scripture one more time.
Better is the life of a poor man in a mean cottage than delicate fare in another man's house.
So he said it's better for a man to be in a beat down run, like y'all seen Rocky's First Apartment? Thing was so up. But it said it's better for a man to be living in that type situation than to be living off of another man. Right? So later in the process, keep in mind, it's not saying that a man needs to have all of his stuff together. He need to be rich. He need to have it. No, it's not saying that. It's saying that he needs to have the resources available to buy something of his own. That means whether or not he has the job and the money to do so and hasn't purchased the home yet, or he's already living in something of his own. Why? Because we understand that times are a lot different than they were before. For example, Jacob did not have any money when he went to take his wife. So what did he do? he became employed. He got a job, right? And from that job, he acquired what he needed in the process of courtship to obtain his wife. But he didn't take his wife until he had what he needed to support them, right? So the standard now, where you're looking at, where we're looking at a market now where, renting a studio apartment is $1,400 a month, and then you have to have 3 times that in order to get into a place. Fact of the matter is that it's a lot less feasible than it previously was. So now it's about setting yourself up into a position to where when it's time for you two to come together, you can bring your resources together to get in something. Why? Because as we're going to see later in the process, it's necessary that a man and that a woman begin searching for a home together. I'm going to say that again. The reason why it's not as important as to what he's living in or how much or whether or not it's nice anyways is because he's going to be moving in with her anyway. At the later stages of the process is when they begin looking for a property together. Does it need to be perfect? No. But does it need to be yours? Yes. Or do you need to have something to put that sister in? Absolutely. Or have the resource to put that sister in something? Absolutely. Hebrews chapter 8, verse 12.
Hebrews chapter 8, verse 12.
Mm-hmm.
For the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God.
So it said, for when in the time when ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God. He says, you're supposed to be, you've been doing this for how long? You've been sitting underneath, hearing all of these lessons for how long? And you still need to be taught the foundation of the knowledge of good and evil. You still don't know the difference. Read.
And are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. Verse 13. For everyone that uses milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness.
Go ahead.
For he is a babe.
Mm-hmm.
But strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age.
Strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age. What is full age, people? We just read over it. What age is full age? 20. Yes. Perfect. The full age is 20. So it says, but strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age. Read.
Even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil.
So by the time that these young men who've been raised in the truth have reached full age, the age of 20, now they have already exercised their senses to discern both good and evil. So you see how this goes back? You see how this automatically goes back to understanding of the scriptures? How it goes back to what the Damascus document was stating? The water. So Paul details here that the order that was placed in the beginning of this lesson, right? He says that a man, by the time he reaches the age of 20, in Paul's time, should be being of full age, should be able to discern good and evil. Instead, these men are still like children between the ages of 3 and 12 that still need to be instructed on the simplest things concerning the Most High. Where am I going with this? If a young man cannot rightly divide the scriptures by the age of 20 to understand whether or not a course of action is sinful or righteous, and must still consult the elders concerning every matter of his home, he's not ready to marry a whole office in the church. Why? Because the people of your household should be able to come to you concerning understanding of doctrine and decisions according to the scriptures. If they have to come to you, and you, every time something comes up concerning the simplest matters, got a call, hey, so somebody asked me if we can eat the thigh of the chicken. Nah, I'm just trying to make sure, because you got the clean animal, you got the unclean animal. So can we eat every part of the animal or just certain parts? Is certain parts unclean of the animal? It's like, listen, Is the animal clean or is it not? No, you all be surprised. It's funny, but you'd be surprised the questions that get asked.
Yeah, that was a real question. Man.
Yeah, the thigh. Somebody literally asked, "Can we eat the thigh of the chicken?" Like for real, that was a legitimate question. So, the fact of the matter is that if you need to go to somebody above you concerning every matter, every question that comes to you, you're not ready because you're tasked with teaching your household. What does the scripture say? It says that if a woman has a question, let her wait till she gets home, till she leaves the assembly to ask her husband. We're going to get into that a little bit more in the next part. But a standard, like I said, this is why we look at it the way that we do. If a man comes to the elder and asks, "Hey, is my son prepared to be married?" And we look at him and say, the way we look at it is we're like, okay, is this person ready to hold office? Would I trust this person with the office within this body? If the answer is no, then he's not prepared to become a husband. Go back to that scripture. Read verse 12.
Verse 12.
Mm-hmm.
Hebrews chapter 8, verse 12. For when for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again.
He said, you should be teaching already, but you continue to come to me every week with the same question. Oh, how many times have you seen that? You got a person that you already taught them about the Sabbath, but every week they come and ask you the same question about the Sabbath.
Too many times.
Well, I heard that it's from sun up to sun up because that's what I was seeing.
Yeah, I mean it's still happening right now. It's crazy.
So the thing is that it says you should be teaching by now. How long have you been here? How long have you been doing this? How long have you been sitting in a congregation hearing what we got to say? But yet you still call us every week with the same question. You aren't learning. Read.
Which be the first principles of the oracles of God.
Not even that, it's the complicated stuff. I can see if you called me and asked me about the Hebrew calendar. Chapter 5?
For what?
Oh, which one? Oh, it's Hebrews chapter 5. Salakia, everyone. That's Hebrews chapter 5, verse 12. Salakia. Typo. But it states, so what was that? What was I saying? Train of thought.
This should be teachers.
Okay. Yeah. So not only do these people not understand, I mean, like I said, I could see if you came to me and was like, "Hey man, I need you to break down that Hebrew calendar again. I need you to break down the times. I need you to break down meekness or something that's deeper and understanding." But when you come to me every week asking me about unclean and clean and unclean, and you coming back to me every week talking about something, hey, so what about the Sabbath? Does this count as stealing? Like, listen, bro, you're coming to me with the simplest of stuff. That's milk. You're coming and asking me about the 10 Commandments, like, and you trying to get married? I promise you, she's gonna have tougher questions for you than that. Read.
And are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. So
you're still learning. Imagine being 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 years old, sitting and learning with 3 to 12-year-olds. And the fact of the matter is that we coming into the truth as late as we came into it, had we been in those times, we would have been sitting and learning with 3-year-olds. People between the ages of 3 and 10. So you legitimately have grown men who want to be married, who are married, that should be learning with 3 to 12-year-olds. Think about that. Maybe it'll light a fire on you to actually learn something. There are 3 and 12-year-olds that know more, that knew more than you. Right? So the husband is responsible for answering the questions of his wife concerning the Most High and being a living example and instructor for his sons. That means that every decision that he makes, every step that he takes, his son is watching. His sons are watching. His daughters are watching. That means that if he can't discern the difference between good and evil, guess where he's leading your children? 50-50? It's toss up. He might be leading them towards good sometimes, but he might be leading them towards evil other times. 50-50. This cannot be done without having a complete conscience and wisdom concerning the Most High. Like I said, does it need to be perfect? No. All of this is growing and learning. No, the Most High never asked for a husband to be perfect. He asked for him to do good. So understand everything that we're going over here as far as the process goes. All of these, this is the process that we understand it according to the scriptures. Things and the standards and the way that they were held back then are a lot different. The economy is a lot different than it was back then. Men, unlike men before, where they were able to leave with an inheritance, we aren't leaving with an inheritance anymore. A lot of times when we're leaving with what we got. So having that understanding, it's about putting yourself in the best position financially, spiritually, and emotionally to handle the burden of a wife. And when the elder can see that you're prepared for that burden, or that you're preparing yourself for that burden, they will begin to prepare you for that process. Let's get 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8.
1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8.
Mm-hmm.
But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel.
So he said, if any provide not for his own, that includes your family, right? That means your sisters, your brothers, your parents. But it said, especially for those of your own house. It says, he has denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. Now, understand something here. This is not just finances. That's the way a lot of people look at it. People look at it and say, oh, well, if you ain't got money, you ain't financially supporting your family, then you worse than an infidel. It's not just that. Because being a leader of a household is more than finances. Con? Do you need finances to lead a church? No, you don't. Christ didn't have any. Christ didn't have a place to lay his head. Right? Why? Because what does the scripture say? The scriptures say, worry not about what you shall eat or what you shall drink, but seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things shall be added unto you. There's a certain level of faith and understanding in how to lead your household according to the Most High in Christ that is required. Because understand, just like we were promised the kingdom, we were also promised troubles on the way to the kingdom. That includes financial struggles. So sometimes, not at the fault of your own, your family will financially struggle because that's just what happens. But the question is, how are you leading them in that situation? Provision. Not just providing for them financially, but in every other aspect. It's deeper than just finances. Anybody can have money and still not be a provider. Understand what the standard of a man was. You were required to have your own and bring somebody else in, but what your job was to do was to teach your household, to be a leader. That's your purpose, to lead. Suppose you're living in a situation where you don't need money. How do you provide? There's no money. Abraham, you got guys who tend to the field, guys who tend to the flock, right? You have a duty And with that duty, what do? You feed your family, right? Whatever the case might be, you do what's necessary to feed your family. So if I make chairs, hey, I made 3 chairs. I'll give you 3 chairs for your sheep. Bet. Now you feed your family. Provision. Teaching your family, leading your family, guiding your family, protecting your family. Provision. So another standard for a man to be married is he needs to be able to provide for himself. Provision. Right? That's on every level. Intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, physically, all those things you need to be able to provide for yourself. Emotional stability is provision. Not everybody has the opportunity to have that. Spiritual stability, provision. Not everyone has that. That's something that's provided. Mm-hmm. Why? Because wives obtain that of their husbands. You obtain emotional stability from your husband. You obtain spiritual stability from your husband. You obtain financial stability from your husband. You obtain physical stability from your husband. That means that all of those things are provisions. So if a man is not capable of doing those things for himself, he's not capable of doing those things for you. Will he be able to do all of them at once? Not all the time. But he needs to be able to do those things. This does not mean that a man needs to be crazy rich in the amount of money he has or whatever the case might be, but he must have something for her to increase. You guys, we went over the lesson before. When woman comes in, what does woman do? She takes what the man already has and does what with it? She multiplies it. She levels it up. But you have to have something for her to level up. A plan, a job, start. A job is a good start. You got a job, hey, boom, we can do something with that. Because guess what? That means finances are coming in. If you're in a position within the ministry, boom, we can grow off of that. But there has to be something for her to increase. So the next thing is he must have a means of providing for himself. So make sure that you guys take note of the definition of provision that I gave there. Take special note of that, because a lot of people think that providing is just finances. But we've seen households like that. Are they broken? Men look at it like, hey, man, I put food on the table. That's what I'm supposed to do. Like, but everything everywhere else was lacking, wasn't it? Relationship with your wife is jacked up. Relationship with your kids are jacked up because they never built a relationship with you. Emotional stability. Mm-hmm. They're all you wondering why they all wrapped up in sin and all these different types of things. Why? Because you never provided them with spiritual stability, provision. All those things you have to be able to provide. All those things you have to have available to you to provide. Provision goes deeper than just finances. Anybody can work through finances. A child can grow up completely broke and still have an understanding of how to financially upgrade themselves. Finances are only a small part of this. Do you guys understand we are still under the curses, that we are still in captivity? This is hard. Finances are the least of our worries. The Most High, the scriptures say that it's nothing for the Most High to make a poor man rich. Nothing. It takes nothing. Let's get Genesis chapter 30, verse 30.
Genesis chapter 30, verse 30.
Mm-hmm.
For it was little which thou hadst before I came, and it is now increased into a multitude. Mm-hmm. And the Lord hath blessed thee since my coming. Mm-hmm. And now when shall I provide for mine own house also? So
even Jacob understood that he would have to provide for his own house. This is speaking of finances. Why? Because when Jacob originally came to Laban for Rachel, he didn't have anything. He didn't have a means of purchasing his wife, of taking a possession. So what did he do? Instead of having the finances, he offered his service. He became Laban's employee. And in the process of becoming an employee, he gained much. So now, when his service time was up, he said, listen, I got to go. I spent all of this time here building your house. It's time for me to build my own. So he took what he was owed from his employer, and he went and established his own. He took the cattle that he brought in. He took everything that he was owed, he took. See, keep in mind, Laban couldn't even have sons before Jacob came. His wife was barren. So when Jacob came, his wife even became fertile. His cattle became fertile. His wife became fertile. Everything increased because Jacob was there. So everything that Jacob earned from being an employee, he took to establish his own house. Meanwhile, he was going through the process of courtship with Laban for Leah and for Rachel. Well, both times he thought it was for Rachel, but you get it. This means that for 14 years, Jacob was an employee and worked for another man to start his family. Let's get Ecclesiastes chapter 19, verse 29. And this just goes to show how different, even back then, the process was from person to person. Because the standard for one man's household is different from the standard of another man's household. Why? Because this man knows his daughter. He knows what his daughters are worth. And as you're going to see later in this lesson, men weren't just giving away their daughters like candy because somebody had some money. Yes, you're a possession, but keep in mind, the scriptures also say that a virtuous woman, her price is above what? Rubies. So he wasn't just taking his daughters and giving them to anyone. Right? Oh, do you got daughters? Somebody came up with they got money, but they tripping. It's a no. It's a no-go. You can have as much money as you want, but you tweaking. Right? So it's not that every situation is different. Jacob came, he had no money. Abraham came, he had plenty. Isaac had plenty. Isaac didn't even go to find his wife. Abraham sent his servant to go find Isaac's wife. So every situation is a little bit different in the way that it was handled. Jacob went through the process of courtship when he had nothing. But it was because of his employment that he was working towards something. But even still, he did not become married until he had what was necessary to start his family. He didn't have the house yet, but he had the means by which to build one. Everyone, put a 1 in the chat if you're following. Ecclesiasticus chapter 19, verse 29.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 19, verse 29. A man may be known by his look, and one that hath understanding by his countenance. When thou meetest him, a man's attire and excessive laughter and gait show what he is.
This is important. How many of you have read over this and not really paid too much attention to it? This scripture is paramount. It's paramount. Along with a man first being married to the Holy Spirit, he's known mainly by his look, the way that he presents himself. A man who does not care to keep up with himself, looking well and clean, does not have the capacity to take care of you. He doesn't know how to present himself. Now, granted, there has to be effort. But chances are he's going to look a lot better after you're with him than he did without you. But if a man is coming in and he ain't dressed right, like he looked like he just stepped off the corner somewhere, hair nappy, beard uncut, just look dirty, look stank, walk slouched over, like, yeah, nah, you ain't ready. Sisters, there has to be a standard. And that's one thing that we've seen sort of decline over time. Back in the day, women wanted men that were dressed. You had on a suit, you know what I'm saying? You had a fresh cut. You look good, right? You look clean. You look put together. Now, the standard is sagging pants, nappy hair, jacked up. I mean, even if you got locks or dreadlocks, like you gotta at least have them things like at least like looking some kind of at least get an edge up. You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta put forth something. But the way that you present yourself, the standard by which women determined whether or not a man was prepared is completely different now than what it was. Ephesians 5 says that a man must love his wife as his own body. Con? So if he doesn't wash, groom, or dress like he cares for himself, he won't make sure to do the same for you. I'm going to say that again. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. Ephesians 5 says that a man must love his wife as his own body. So if he's not willing to wash himself, groom himself, dress like he cares about himself, then he won't make sure to do that for you, to provide that for you. Look at the way he holds his face. Does he walk around looking mad all the time? Does he walk around looking like his head's in the clouds? Is he always look like something's bothering him? Is he at peace? Is he does his face look as if he's at peace, as if he's thinking, if he's happy, if he's joyful? All those things matter. See, the unconscious mind tells you a lot about a person's character. The way you naturally hold your face, determines where your state is on the inside. See, people who smile naturally, generally good people, right? Because you can tell the difference. Like, it's like, okay, have you ever seen somebody walk into a room, somebody that's normally, they just have this light about them. They may not be smiling directly, but they genuinely look kind of upbeat. And then you see them come in and you can just automatically tell something's bothering them. Now, suppose the opposite. Somebody who's normally always angry, always come in, they're just looking like somebody put pebbles in their Frosted Flakes. It just always look like something is wrong with them. And they come in and they're happy and they're joyful. It's like, well, that's different. Know the difference. Because that's character. You have to know the difference between what's character and what's out of the ordinary. Hear me. You have to know the difference between what's character and what's out of the ordinary. If every time you see them and it seems like they're happy, they're upbeat, and it's out of the ordinary, it's like, yeah, that person got something wrong with them. Let the negative be what's out of the ordinary. Let the positive be what's ordinary. Because the unconscious mind says more about you than the conscious mind. Why? Because if you think about it, obviously you have all the right answers. If you're thinking about it. When you're not thinking about it, boom. You can tell how well somebody knows a topic if you rapid fire questions at them. If you give them the answers before they come in, guess what they're gonna do? Study. That's the point of a pop quiz. We're gonna find out whether you know what you know. The unconscious mind tells you a lot about someone. Right? Look at his countenance when you see him and when you meet him, what his face looks like. Look at the way he dresses. Look at the way he walks. There's something about a walk that says so much about someone and the way that they carry themselves. Right? And here's a clue. Watch out for people who move too quickly, for men who move too quickly. If they walk as if they don't know where they're going, y'all know what that looks like. Y'all seen somebody who walks like they don't know where they're going? If every time you see them, they're walking as if they don't know where they're going, you're in danger. Because those are the people in the end times that are going to get you killed. See, the scriptures let you know that a man is wise in his steps. He plans his day. He knows what's going to, he has an idea of what's supposed to, of where he's going or what he's trying to do. When I go into the store, I'm not going in. Listen, if I'm going to the store, I'm knowing what I'm going in there for. And I'm going to get in there, I'm going to get what I went in there for, and I'm going to get out. So ain't no me trying to, what about this over here? I know what I came in there to get. Right? Why? Because women are that way. Women often don't have a clear path. Right? The sun, he knows his cycles. He knows where he's supposed to be in sun up, sundown. Right? He knows where he's supposed to be. What does the moon do though? She takes her own course. She does what she wants. She's spontaneous. He's like, she in the middle of doing this, and she's like, oh, I gotta go do this. And she's doing both at the same time. See, the reason why those two things are important, you can't have two people that are together like that, is because you're on a path to nowhere. You're walking in circles. The purpose of the man is to guide and steer the woman. It's like, okay, I know you got this, but I need focus here. This is the plan. Stick to the plan. Right? Someone has to have the plan, and the other person has to be able to execute. So if you see a man that every time you see him, he seems aimless, like he has no idea where he's going or why he is where he is, dangerous. Pro tip. And that's from the scriptures. A man who has no direction, doesn't know where he's going, dangerous. Completely dangerous. All these attributes show what kind of a man this guy is. It applies to sisters too. Is she dressed modestly? Or is she in everybody's face for attention? Does she always look like something's bothering her? Like you see somebody and you see a sister, she just like, and then you ask, man, what's wrong? That's just how I look. You're like, yeah, no, thank you. You're gonna cause me a lot of problems. you gonna cause me a lot of problems. If your natural emotion, if your natural face is just like, nah, I don't want to be bothered with you. Nah, I don't want, because that means that your natural setting is angry and bothered. That's basically what you just told me. Your unconscious setting is to be angry and bothered. All these things matter. Why? Because you're going to be spending forever with this person. Forever with this person. So if their natural setting is angry, guess what the natural setting of your relationship is going to be? Angry. Right? There's one final thing that has to happen before a man can find and take a wife. Let's get Genesis 28:2.
Genesis chapter 28, verse 2.
Some of y'all not going to like this. Read.
Arise, go to Padanaram, the house of Bethuel, thy mother's father, and take thee a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. And Isaac sent away Jacob, and he went to Padanaram unto Laban, son of Bethuel, the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob and Esau's mother.
So a lot of things happened in this scripture. And a lot of you probably read this plenty times and never caught it. Much like how Abraham determined when his son Isaac was ready to become married, he sent his servant with the standard of what kind of woman Isaac should have. So that means Isaac, it was a blind marriage. He had no idea who he was going to be marrying. He trusted the judgment of his father. His father said, all right, servant, come here. These are the standards for which this woman can marry my son. I need you to go to this particular area and find these particular people. And I need you to find this type of woman and bring her back for my son to marry. We see Isaac do the same thing with Jacob, not only letting him know to go find his wife, but also sending him directly to who he wanted him to take a wife from. Isaac said, listen, I found a good one in Rebekah. Well, I didn't find him. My father's servant found him. This is the house she came from. So I'm assuming that if my wife came from this family, you can find a good wife from that family too. So I need you to go to Padanaram. I need you to go to Laban and take a wife of his daughters. When a man is ready to enter into the courting process, his father and or his elders will let him know that he is ready and will impart wisdom and will impart the important wisdom on him, guiding him along the way as to how to go about it the proper way. So it's a guiding process. Listen, we understand that not every household has a father. It's part of the curses. But now you lean on your leadership, the men who are married within the ministry, to let you know, hey, bruh, essentially when your leader or your elder comes to you and says, hey, man, you ready to take up office? Essentially what he's telling you is you're ready to find a wife. And now what he's going to begin to do, because keep in mind, part of your office as a deacon, the entry level as a deacon, is having a wife. Because keep in mind, sisters, y'all gotta understand. When the sisters were in their women's meeting, when the sisters in the body met up for their women's meeting, I explained this. Understand, the position that your husband holds is the position that you hold. The elder of the church and the elder woman of the church. So that means that when he approaches a position of leadership, that falls upon you as well. That's why there's a deacon and a deaconess. Right? So when you go to when your elder informs you, hey, you're ready, or when your father comes to you and says, hey, you're ready, they're going to begin to impart wisdom upon you, not only as to how to carry yourself, but what the standard should be for who you should marry in order to have the most productive marriage and relationship. That means that they're going to let you know, hey, man, these are the kind of women to stay away from. If you're going to find a wife, you need to go over here. This is where it's going to work out. But see, this is where it goes back to. This is where it goes back to a man who is wise and fears the Lord. A man who is wise and fears the Lord takes heed to the counsel of his elders. He listens to the counsel of his elders. That means that if his elders give him advice on something, what is he going to do? The advice that his elders gave to him. He takes heed to counsel. Now, if that man says, man, bump what y'all saying, I'm going to go and do what I want to do, like Esau. Esau was told not to take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Did it anyway. He knew what the standard was. Right? He went and took a wife of the daughters of Canaan anyways. You're going to have those. But the wise men, the men that fear the Lord, are going to take the counsel of their elders or of their father. The standard for who he marries is determined and given by his father, and the rules of courtship by his leadership. I'm going to say that again. The standard for who he marries is given by his father, and the rules of courtship by his leadership. If your father says you are going to marry someone from the same tribe as us, you will marry somebody from the same tribe as him. Why? Because the blessing and the cursing, we're going to get into that in a little bit. We'll get into that in a little bit, getting ahead of myself. The standard for who he marries is given by the father, and the rules of courtship by his leadership. Why? Because the rules of courtship are different for every household. The standards are different for every household. The job of the leadership of the church is to ensure that while the process is going down, that neither one is in sin. That's the goal, is to make sure that there's nowhere for the enemy to squeak his way in to this situation. That's the elders and the leadership's job, to make sure that no one is damaged, traumatized, or whatever the case might be in this process. That's the leadership's goal. The father's goal is to set the standard for what is required for you to be able to take his wife. If you aren't equipped or if you don't want to meet that standard, that's up to you. That means that that's not your wife then. Keep it stepping. Hey, listen, he say, listen, bro, I'm gonna need you. We living in the quote unquote year 2023. If he tells you in 2023, get me 3 sheep, 3 cows, you know what I mean? I don't care how you look at it, that's his standard. So either you're gonna get with it or you're gonna move to try to find somebody else. And trust me, when the one is the one and you realize that you found the one, remember what we went over in the last lesson. When the one is the one, guess what? You go, hey, listen, do you have any live cattle available? Trust me, when the one is the one, there's not much a man won't do. So if you ain't willing to do what this man has required you to do to take this woman, it's not it. Might as well keep it stepping anyways. Don't force the issue. While the requirements as to what needs to take place is determined by the father of the bride. I'm going to say that again. While the requirements to what needs to take place is determined by the father of the bride, that means that there are certain things that the father of the bride might want to see. There might be certain things that he wants done. That may be different from one father to the next. Keep in mind, with Isaac and Rebekah, Isaac didn't have to give anything. He gave them gifts and different things like that, but they didn't ask that of him. Why? Because they knew Abraham. So they were going to give Rebekah to Isaac anyways. Right? You see the same thing with Tobias. Because they knew the reputation of Tobit and the character of Tobit, they trusted Tobias with Sarah. But with Laban said, nah, I'm going to need 7 years of service. Since you don't got no finances, I'm going to need 7 years of service. So the standard for all of these fathers was completely different. Even from Laban, even from what was Rebekah's father's name? I forget. Wasn't Terah. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. The standard for Rebekah's father and his son Laban were two totally different things, even though that was his son. So understand, men, you don't get to determine what you give or what you need to do to be acceptable for a man's daughter. You don't get to do that. He determines that. And when he feels like you've met those standards, he'll give you his daughter. So while the requirements for what needs to take place is determined by the father of the bride as to what he wants the groom to do or to accomplish may fluctuate from house to house. But there are basic rules that are set by the eldership to prevent sin within the process itself, to protect the two people participating in the process. Why? Because not everyone's father is going to be in the truth. So that means that their standards for what's allowed and not allowed may be different from the scriptures. The eldership's job is to set the boundaries within the scriptures to make sure that no sin is taking place, that both sides are protected, the son and the daughter. Let's get Luke chapter 21, verse 19.
Luke chapter 21, verse 19. In your patience, possess ye your souls.
In your patience, possess ye your souls. Let's get Ecclesiastes chapter 6, verse 7.
Ecclesiastes chapter 6, verse 7. If thou wouldest get a friend, prove him first, and be not hasty to credit him.
Mm-hmm.
For some man is a friend for his own occasion, and will not abide in the day of thy trouble.
That means that he's friends. He's good with you now while things are good, but the second things take a turn, he's gone. Read.
Verse 9. And there is a friend who being turned to enmity and strife will discover thy reproach.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 10, again, a friend is a companion at the table and will not continue in the day of thy affliction.
So what is this talking about here? Now, this is kind of where we lead into the next part where we actually discuss the marriage dynamic itself. The dynamic of a marriage is friendship, right? Usually your friend is a lot like you, right? You have a lot of things in common. So that means the scripture says that a wife should be what to her husband? He should have a helpmeet like unto himself. So if he has a helpmeet like unto himself, that means that you guys should be what? Friends. Right? There should be a friendship there. If this person is just like you, there's a friendship. Not only that, but now you two are best friends. The biggest factor in this process is patience. Times now are not like what they were. Now we're going to go back to kind of the idea of what we know about the times and how they've changed. Times aren't like how they were even back in the previous century, where families had reputations, right? The world has gotten so much bigger, right? Back in the day, you married people that were within your community, within your county, right? You weren't going off 2 hours, 3 hours in this direction or that direction to meet somebody. You only had the people that were within your community. And everybody within that community knew about everyone within that community. So you knew their reputation, right? The same was so in the scriptures, right? Everyone knew of everyone. Keep in mind, even in the times of Israel, guess what happened? Everyone came back to Jerusalem. That means that everyone was interacting with everyone. So the reputations of people passed around the nation, right? That era of families has come to an end. Knowing how someone was raised, knowing the family that they came from, knowing the family's reputation is not like, that era is over. Therefore, the process of not only learning about a person, but their flaws, their upbringing, their vices, or whatever the case might be, would take much longer or may not take as long. That means it may fluctuate. It could take a long time. It could take a short time. It could take a really, really long time, or it could take a short time, right? Why? Because now there's more that needs to be learned than was before. It varies, but it is important that each side is patient. Patience must be practiced, right? You can't. There wasn't no like it was back when the servant went to Abraham's servant went to Rebecca, and Rebecca went to her father and Laban, and she said, "Hey, this is the servant of Abraham. He's looking for a wife for his son." They're like, "Abraham, bet." We know Abraham has riches. We know Abraham is righteous. So his son is probably just like him. Or what we're going to see later with Tobias and his cousin concerning Sarah, their daughter Sarah. Raguel concerning Sarah. When Raguel found out that Tobias was Tobit's son, he was like, "Oh, shoot. Hey, bring it here. I know Tobit. Tobit is a good man. I know his people." Same thing as back in the day. I'm sure you seen it where it was like, you such and such son.
Yeah.
You such and such daughter. And it's either you're such and such son, or it's like, ooh, you such and such son. I know where you come from. I know your stock.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like that no more. You have to actually learn about these people's. You're not just learning about that person, you're learning about their parents. How they were raised, the culture, the standards for their household. You're not just learning about your vices, you're learning about the parents' vices. Why? Because you need to know what their generational curses are. Can those get passed down to your children? All of these things take time to learn. It's not just about that person, it's about what they come from. The most dangerous thing for a child is a generational curse. And if you don't take as much time to learn about the parents and their family as you do with them, there's a chance that you could swing and miss.
That's right.
Protocol for the House of Judah for House of Judah International is at least 1 year. As it is important to see someone in all seasons across all feast days as things change and a lot happens in a year for a person. Over a year's time, a lot happens and takes place. Seasons change, people change, situations arise, struggles arise, and you get an opportunity to see them in all of those positions. I can see you when you're under stress. I can see you when everything's good. I can see you when a family member passes away. I can see you in every situation. Now I know that here's how you react in certain situations. When he was in trouble, when he was struggling with something, did he go and seek counsel from his elders, or did he stop showing up to the fellowship?
That's real.
That's all important. When he encounters certain things like conflict, does he shut down? Or does he take time to compose? Or does he just rash out and blow up on you? Or does he take time to compose himself and come back and have a reasonable conversation? See, that's the difference between men and women. Understand, women, this is another gem for you. Any man who's willing to blow up in the moment as opposed to compose himself and come back and have a logical situation is a dangerous person. Why? Because men walk in wisdom. See, sisters, they often want to have it out in the moment, right? Yeah. But the truth of the matter is that the man has to be conscious of honoring you as the weaker vessel. So the way he says things, the way he goes about handling issues, he has to keep you in mind so as not to break you. Oftentimes, when a man is taking time to say, hey, we'll revisit this in a little bit once I had a chance to compose myself, what he's doing is he's protecting you. He's honoring you as the weaker vessel. I know right now, if I say something, chances are I'm going to say something that's going to hurt you. So as not to do that, give me 15, 20 minutes to compose myself. And we can come back and have this conversation.
That's wisdom.
That's wisdom. This is why time is important. See the way he handles issues. See the way he comes to conclusions concerning problems. When things get rough, does he stop showing up or does he seek wisdom? Is he afraid to ask for help? Because chances are, if he's not willing to take counsel or ask for counsel, he's not willing to accept help either.
Really quick, those of you that may be watching on Facebook, I just noticed that it's pausing a lot. I'm not sure why that's happening. Everything is pretty steady here. I'm not sure what's going on Facebook. But you can actually jump over to YouTube and watch there if you'd like.
If we can have someone put a comment in the chat in Facebook, letting people know if they're experiencing pausing, put the link to the YouTube so that way they can watch it here. Okay. So the reason why patience and time is important is because it gives enough time for potential issues for the future of a relationship to be revealed and dealt with before marriage takes place. Time, patience, it gives an opportunity for you to see things, point them out, fix them, and then move forward.
Yeah, if you struggle with patience, that's just a sign that you're not ready.
Not ready.
Not ready.
See, the thing is that not every issue, not everything that comes up is a fireable offense, but it needs to get dealt with before you become married. So now it's like, okay, well, we came to this issue, we worked through it, now we can move forward. But if you don't give enough time for those issues to arise and take place, guess what's going to happen when you become married? Those issues are going to arrive and take place. Let's get 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 18.
1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 18. Flee fornication. Every sin that a man doeth is without the body, but he that committeth fornication sinneth against his own body.
So fornication cannot exist in the courting process. For those who don't know what that means intercourse outside of marriage. It cannot exist. It can't. This is why all interaction between two participating members of a courtship must be chaperoned to ensure that these mistakes don't take place.
That's right.
That means no meeting up alone. It needs to. There's somebody of wisdom that knows what the standard is. Don't go get somebody that don't know what the heck is supposed to be going on to chaperone. You get somebody that you know that is of wisdom, that has knowledge, that knows how this thing is supposed to work to chaperone. And the reason why is to avoid things like this.
Yep. Also beware of those late night conversations on the telephone too. The thing is, men are stimulated by what they see. Women are stimulated by what they hear. So a guy can be anybody on the phone. So you got to be careful with that. Yeah. If majority of your interaction is over the phone, you have to wait until you have an opportunity to actually be around this person for a significant amount of time. It's a trap. Right? And we're going to get into that here in a couple of moments. Man, let's get 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 9. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 9. But if they cannot contain, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn. Nobody denies that the desire is there. Listen, nobody in this room is perfect, right? At the end of the day, we all know that desire exists, especially after you've, succumbed to that desire before. It's like a drug, right? So if you're struggling, you need to start getting yourself together to become married. That's right. That doesn't mean, hey, I'm having desires, time to get married. No, it means that you need to start putting yourself in the position to be ready for marriage. How is that? 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 2. 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 2. Nevertheless, avoid fornication. Let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. So to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife. That means that one wife, and let every woman have her own what? Husband. That means that every woman has the right to her own husband. No sharing, brothers. Ain't no, hey, y'all gonna have to share me. Ain't none of that. It says, nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every wife have her own husband. That's not another wife, that's an accomplice. Wow. To avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and every wife have his own husband. Man and woman desiring to be with one another is natural, and it should exist. However, it is important that this does not become a factor until post-marriage to protect both sides from cursing their union behind fornication. That's right. Now you got to go back and start fresh all over again. Recalibrate, regroup. Because once you've allowed darkness into the relationship, the only thing that can clear that darkness is light. Now you got to start over. Now, granted, it will be better. Things will be better now that darkness isn't involved. But once that darkness is involved, guess what you've done to your relationship? You've cursed it. Someone get the Zondervan Bible Dictionary off that shelf back there. It's on the top shelf. It's the green book. should be towards the right.
Yeah, it's further towards the right. It's right by the Tyndale Bible, the smaller Bibles. Yep, right there. It cannot become a factor until post-marriage, right? Let's get the definition of marriage in here. We're going to get the definition of marriage. We're going a little off script here, but it's okay. Marriage. According to the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, this is on page 345. It states, marriage is an intimate personal union to which a man and a woman consent, consummated and continuously nourished by sexual intercourse, and perfected in a lifelong partnership of mutual love and commitment. So it does not become a factor. It is what intercourse is what binds the marriage together. It makes one a part of the other. You become the consummation is where the twain become one. It makes the marriage or the union official. Can't jump the gun. That's why chaperones and making sure that the order is preserved amongst the two. It's protecting you. We're not keeping you from anything. We're protecting you from it. A fleshly desire to be with a man or a woman can not only be the reason why one desires to be married. You're like, well, man, I guess it's time. No, that's not the way that this works. Marriage is not it's a business transaction. It's a maneuver. It's a chess move. At the end of the day, a king can't win a game of chess without the queen. It's very difficult. It happens, but it's very, very difficult. Chances are, if you lose your queen, you got to be really good. And there is no game without a king, sisters. There is no game without a king. So if you view one or the other as simply an object to help your desires, you're cursing yourself and you're cursing that person. That's a good way to end up in a broken and unfruitful marriage. Tobias is a good example of this. Let's get Tobit chapter 8, verse 7. What did he say?
Tobit chapter 8, verse 7. And now, O Lord, I take not this my sister for lust, but uprightly. He
said, I take not this sister for lust, but uprightly. What did he say? Read.
Therefore, mercifully ordain that we may become aged together.
He said, Lord, approve this marriage that we can become aged together. A lifelong partnership, union, a lifelong union, not partnership, union. Tobias prayed to the Most High that their union would be blessed, ensuring that he was not taking this woman for the flesh, but to build a legacy and keep her as the helpmeet she was created to be. He brought her in to fulfill her office, to elevate him. He said, I'm taking her uprightly, not after lust. Based on what we know about the psychology of man and woman, Tobias was a man that feared the Most High and fully understood the purpose and the role of a woman. And he would allow her to operate in full femininity to reach their goals and grow old together. This was his intent. As a man who feared the Most High, he said, I'm bringing this woman not to just be a maid, to clean up after me or whatever the case might be. He said, I need this woman to help build with me. So the question is, based off of what Tobias just said here, If Sarah was doing everything according to her office as a wife, right? We went over what the office of a wife was last week. What other reason would he have for taking another wife except if it were lust? He said he takes not her after lust, right?
That's what he said.
And he's the man who fears the Most High, which means that he understands what a good woman is, right? He understands all of her offices, all of her duties. If she's fulfilling her part of the marriage, she's not withholding from him. What reason would he have for taking another wife? There is none but lust. That's the only reason.
Mm-hmm.
So he can't come to Sarah later and be like, yeah, I'm thinking about going and, you know, going to the market and grabbing me another one.
Mm-hmm.
Nah. It's not how it works. Let every man have his own wife. You want your own wife, right? I mean, is she wrong for wanting her own husband too?
Good point.
You don't want to share your wife? So why are you expecting her, being the weaker vessel, to have the fortitude to share you? You're not strong enough to share. And she's the weaker vessel. But you're expecting her to be strong enough to share. It's goofy, isn't it? It's goofy. It's stupid.
Definitely lust.
It's definitely lust. We went over that in our lesson, love or lust. Let's get Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 6.
Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 6. Take ye wives and beget sons and daughters.
Take note of this scripture because we're going to come back to it later. He says, take ye wives, read,
and beget sons and daughters.
and beget sons and daughters. So he's telling them to start a family. Read. But what does he tell them to do for the next generation? Read.
And take wives for your sons.
He said, and do what?
Take wives for your sons.
The fathers gave the yes or the no to their sons on a wife. They either chose the wife for him, see Abraham for Isaac, or he gave the yes or the no, see Abraham for Ishmael. When Abraham went to Ishmael, took that journey and went to Ishmael, and he saw his first wife acting a fool, he's like, yeah, tell my son this, and he'll know that she got to go. And guess what Ishmael did when he found out? He said, pack your stuff and slide. And then he went and got another wife. Abraham came back to see him, and this wife was a good wife. So he said, I approve. So yes, fathers hold veto power. And if you don't have a father, yes, elders hold veto power. If the elder be like, listen, bro, that's not a good situation. Leave that alone. A man who fears the Most High takes the counsel of the wise.
While you're on that topic, speak to the young lady that's like, no, but I love him. I love him.
Listen, sisters. If your father is telling you that something isn't a good idea, keep in mind he is a man. And he found a wife at one point too. So he knows what this situation looks like. Listen, we know what the locker room conversations are.
Yep.
We hear them. We know what people talk about in the bathrooms, at the urinals. Listen, we know about all of it. We know about all of this. So trust me, if he's saying that something isn't a good idea, or if he's saying not right now, listen to it. Listen, your father's job is to protect you, is to provide for you, to be a hedge, to be a covering for you. So do you honestly think he would withhold something that's good for you? Do you think he wants you living in his house your entire life? He don't. But if he's saying no, there's a reason he's saying no. He's saying no because that something about that does not smell right. So hold on while I figure out what's going on with this dude. And when I figure out what's going on with him, we can either fix it or he's not the one. That's because he has a responsibility to protect you. See, women think, we're going to get into that a little bit later. I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to get ahead of myself because we're going to get into that a little bit later.
Gotcha.
But sisters, understand, your father has your best interest. He's not going to just give you to anybody because they look good, because they do this, because they do that. He's looking for something. He's looking for, can this dude be as good, if not better, of a covering than I was for you? Or is he going to get you pregnant and leave you somewhere? Or is he going to beat on you? Listen, dudes change. Crazy stuff happens. His job is to make sure that you aren't in that situation. And fact of the matter is, usually people standing on the outside see better what's going on the inside than the people on the inside do. Why do you think that offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators are starting to sit in the box and not stand on the sideline? Because it's easier to see everything from an aerial view than it is than some people see it on the field. You can only see so much. I mean, a lot of times you got the bar, literally, football player, you got people talk about peripheral vision. Listen, all you see is this. So that means that you have to turn your head to see everything. And even still, you're on this is 2D. So that person who's up, you really, if a quarterback sitting up there, down there like, yeah, no, that don't make sense. I don't like what you're saying. I don't like this. Listen, bro, he see it from up there. Trust what he sees. If you can't trust what he sees, it's either something wrong with him or it's something wrong with you. Right? So he said, take ye wives, beget sons and daughters. He's saying, so y'all get married, have children, and when your sons are ready, take wives for them. Take wives for you. They have the power to say yes or no to a woman. Or to say, hey, bro, that one. Mm-hmm. That one right there. That's the one. Go get her. Go talk to her father. He has the power to do that. Read, but what does it say?
I'm going to back up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And take wives for your sons and give your daughters to husbands.
And what?
And give your daughters to husbands.
Okay. Read.
That they may bear sons and daughters, that ye may be increased there and not diminished.
Purpose. Increase and multiply. Right? Traditionally, the fathers have primary and final say-so in who their sons marry. With their daughters, they have primary. They have the primary, and their daughters have, and their daughters get to determine whether or not they would like to marry a man. So the father has the ability to say no concerning his daughter. Yeah, no, thank you. Go somewhere. He has the power to do that. But the daughter, so say, for example, the father likes a man. A dude comes and he's like, hey, I want to marry your daughter. I would like your daughter's hand in marriage. And the father says, all right, checks out. I know your father, me and him, good friends. Know you was raised right. Bet. You come and sit him down with your daughter. Hey, this brother wants to go into a courtship with you. Right? And the father lets him know, hey, I know his family, good people. He's got this going on, this going on, this going on. What do you think? Would you like to go through the courting process with this guy? And the daughter has the opportunity to say yes or no. Right? We're going to take a quick break, come back, and finish up the lesson, all right? Hope everybody's following well.
One moment.
Whoa, whoa, you were on my mind, girl, and I want you to know that. Don't you know that you was made for me, and I was made for you. It's true, girl, And I know that I was made for you, and you was made for me, girl. Can't you see, can't you see, can't you see? Yeah, let's start a family, you and I together. I don't mind paying the dory, cause no price can match your character. We'll make history, just like our forefathers. I'm loving you like Abraham to Sarah. You bring me comfort just like Rebecca. I praise the Most High for giving me a gift so divine. Some even wondering why. Every time that I see you I smile, cause I know that you was made for me, and I was made for you, girl. I know, and I know that I was made for you, and you was made for me, girl. Don't you see, don't you see, don't you see? The way the world is moving now, it's a difficult task to find true love. A virtuous woman is like scarce commodity. 1 in a billion, that's what you are to me. You love the Most Highest love, so modest with your fashion, nothing you know expose. And I want you to know that I'm in love with you from your head to your toes. And when the bad time comes, you can count on me, I'll never leave you alone, yeah. Girl, I'll be right by your side, cause I know that you was made for me, and I was made for you, girl. I know, and I know that I was made for you, and you was made for me, girl. Don't you see, don't you see, don't you see? Oh boy, yeah, I know that you was made for me, and I was made for you, girl. Oh yeah. And I know that I was made for you, and you was made for me, girl. Don't you see, don't you see, don't you see? I know that you was made for me, and I was made for you, girl. My baby. And I know that I was made for you, and you was made for me, girl. Whoa, whoa.
All right, we are back. We are back. We are back. Okay. Once again, we'd like to remind everybody: like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. Support the work any way you can. We are being shadow banned, so likes are more important than ever at this point. So make sure that you're still subscribed. Make sure that make sure that you're still subscribed and that the notification bell is on, so because we're posting more, right? So absolutely, as we post more, make sure that you have the notifications so you know whenever we're posting. Okay. So where we just came from, right? The fathers on either side, right? As it pertains, the father of the son, the father of the groom, has the opportunity to be able to say no or choose who he would like his son, or choose or give his son guidelines as to who he would like them to marry, right? And for his daughters, he has the ability to determine yes or no in preliminary. Let's say yes or no to a guy. But the daughter, she's able to say yes or no as to whether or not she would like to move forward with that guy. Right? That means that first, no man should be coming to you except to ask, where's your father?
Say that again.
No man should be coming to you to say anything except, where's your father? I need to talk to him. We have to have a serious conversation. And after you and the father have that conversation, guess what you do from that point? The father and you and the father go before the elders. And the elders say, okay, based off of our counsel with this brother, he's got this, 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 and this. And before that, and this needs to get handled with us before he can go and take your daughter. It's to mediate and protect either side in the process. Right? We see this throughout history with the Hebrews. Abraham having Ishmael. Abraham had Ishmael put away his first wife and approving of his second wife. And listen, Ishmael got her up out of there that day. We said, replace the nail on the tent. Yeah, pack up. You out of here. Same day. He didn't think on it. He said, listen, he said, you got to go. You got to go. Then the second wife he was pleased with. He kept her. He said, yeah, keep this one closed. That's a good one. And with Isaac, he told both of his sons not to take wives from the Canaanites. And he sent Jacob directly to the house of Laban to find a wife of his daughters. Literally said, he said, you go to Padan Aram, you look for a man named Laban, and you pick a wife from them. Right? Tobit told Tobias that his wife needed to be from the same tribe as them, and he wound up with his distant cousin Sarah. He literally told, like, listen, you're going to marry somebody from our tribe. And that's exactly what Tobias did. While the standard for each of these fathers were different, what they required of their sons, right? One sent their son directly to a particular family to become married. One said, you can marry whoever you want as long as they're from our tribe. And the other said, listen, this is the standard for the kind of woman that my son should marry. These are the requirements that I have. Different for each one, right? But the reason why why the fathers have this power, and a lot of people don't realize this, is because they're ultimately the gatekeepers of their legacy, how they'll be remembered. I'm going to say that again. The reason why the fathers have this power, especially with their sons, is because they're the gatekeepers of their legacy. They made sure that the daughters their sons married were befitting of their name and legacy and would not compromise the standard that they instilled in their sons from a young age. What does that mean? A woman has power, and the wrong woman using her power for the wrong thing can tear down everything that father worked his entire life to instill inside of that son. One woman. All of the wisdom that David imparted within Solomon in his old age because of the wives he had, undone. So the fathers are looking out for their legacy going forward. Right? Check this out. We're going to get a little bit more detail on that. Let's get Ecclesiasticus and your Apocrypha, chapter 30, verse 1.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 30 and verse 1.
What is he instilling in his son? Read.
He that loveth his son causes him oft to feel the rod.
He said, often. Listen, I'm going to get you. For just about everything. I got a lot. I got oft.
He did.
Read.
That he may oft have joy of him in the end.
That he may have joy of him in the end. You have to, he said, if you love your son, how do we know this? Because the Most High said that he chased those he loves. So if you love them, you will punish them for what they do wrong, so that when they begin doing right, you can have joy in them. Knowing that my son made the right decisions, there's joy. Right? Read.
Verse 2. He that chasteneth his son shall have joy in him.
He that chasteneth or that chastiseth his son shall have joy in him. Read.
And shall rejoice of him among his acquaintance.
He's going to talk about him. Yeah, you, my son. Yeah. Man, your son doing this? Yeah, he sure is. Yep. You chastise him. Why? Concerning every decision, you make sure that anytime your son comes to you and says, hey, I want to do this. I'm thinking about doing this. It's like, listen, we're going to make sure you got a plan. Why you want to do this? If this happens, what you gonna do about that? If this happens, what you gonna do about this? Yeah, nah, you ain't got none of those answers to that question. Go somewhere. So you got those answers. I don't want to hear it. And it sounds brutal. It sounds rude. It's like, dang, why you had to do it? Mom's looking, why you had to do him like that? You can't crush his dreams. It's not about crushing his dreams. It's about teaching him to use wisdom, have a plan. You can't have a son that just going around doing stuff because he wants to do it without having a plan or how to execute it. That's how you come up with a lazy son who has great ideas and has all of the and can do all of these things, but he can't execute them because he can't come up with a plan. So whenever he comes to you, you want to make sure that you chastise. It feels like chastisement, but what he's doing is he's teaching you. Think about these things when you come up with a plan. When I told the elder I was going to California, he had a whole lot of questions for me. But the thing is, I had answers to the questions because he taught me that way. Anytime I wanted to make a decision, he made sure why. What are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about that? What if this happens? What if that happens? What about this? What about this? What about this? What are you going to do about this? How are you going to do that? And now when I go to make a plan, when something comes up, when I have an idea, guess what I'm doing? I'm asking myself those same questions. So now when I go forward with a plan and I succeed, he can sit amongst his acquaintances and they be like, man, you seen your son did this? And you're like, yeah, he sure did, didn't he? Yeah. See, people get on Joe Jackson about the way that he handled his children, but guess what? None of them ended up. Guess where none of them ended up? On the streets, like the people they was hanging out with. Now, granted, everything didn't turn out perfect because he wasn't a perfect father. But people say, "Oh, he used to beat his children." It's like, listen, they could have been dead, selling drugs on the side of the street, maybe. So where they were as opposed to where they could have been, he did a good thing for them. And when you hear the children that are sane talk about it, it's like, hey man, yeah, he whooped us, but like, I mean, as opposed to what we could have been versus where we are, he did what he had to do. That's why it says, cause him to oft feel the rod. It's like, listen, I see you doing something, because that small thing that you may think is so little, it grows. And it can become something dangerous to your legacy. Read.
Verse 3. He that teaches his son grieveth the enemy.
He that teacheth his son grieveth the enemy. Read.
And before his friends he shall rejoice of him.
And before his friends he shall rejoice of him. He teaches him who his enemies are. Hey man, these are the people that's going to be coming after you. These people, they don't see no good. They're no good. You stay away from these people. He that teacheth his son grieveth the enemy. Why? Because they can't come against him. You taught them already. You taught them the dangers. You taught them what's right and wrong. So now when the enemy comes to get them, you can't. There's no room. Read.
Though his father died. Read. Yet he is as though he were not dead.
He spent his entire life creating a carbon copy of himself. From the way that he walks, to the way that he talks, to the way that he handles himself, to the way that he composes himself, the way that he deals with people, the way that he handles business. People don't talk about Michael Jackson was a carbon copy on the business aspect of his father, Joe. Everybody was like, listen, he was just as at a negotiating table, he was just as fierce as Joe.
That's very true.
They're like, man, I thought that was Joe Jackson I was talking to about that. What? It says, though his father died, yet it is as though he were not dead. It's like, well, shoot. Why? Why is it as though he's not dead? Read.
For he hath left one behind him that is like himself.
He left behind someone that is like unto himself. He was building a carbon copy. Same way as the Most High in Christ. Christ said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. At some point when your father is age, she's going to be like, hey, man, I need you to go down to the office. And I need you to handle this, and that. And if they don't deal with you the same way that they deal with your father, they don't respect you because you're not like him. Y'all see it in movies all the time where you got the rich father and the son, and nobody respects the son because he's that's because Fathers, anybody who's a father in here, keep your sons close at all times. They need to be, why? Because it's accountability for you, but it also teaches them how you do things. See, the fact of the matter is that if you go to handle situations or do situations without your son being there, guess what he's not doing? Learning. So when he's approached with those same situations, he doesn't know what to do. If your son is with you, guess what he's doing the entire time he's with you? He's downloading every single thing. Well, the last time somebody tried to do this, my pop said, nah. So guess what I'm going to say? Nope. It worked out pretty well for Pops.
Mm-hmm.
You allow him to see your mistakes. Why do you let him see your mistakes? So that you can teach him not to make the same ones. There's a certain level of accountability there. And now what you're doing, you have a little, what they call it is a shadow. He walks like you. He talks like you. He thinks like you. And by the time he's a grown man, you're looking at yourself. And you're like, yep. Mm-hmm. So keep your sons close. When you're going and doing business, when you're going and teaching, when you're going to have your son in the same room as you, watching you work.
Keep going.
Right?
Let me finish this.
Okay, no problem. So verse 5.
Verse 5. While he lived, he saw and rejoiced in him. And when he died, he was not sorrowful.
When he died, he wasn't sorrowful. Why?
He left behind him an avenger against his enemies, and one that shall requite kindness to his friends.
So he's saying, I left behind somebody who's going to uphold everything that I set up. See, there's a saying that I learned where it says, hard times make strong men make easy times make weak men make hard times make strong men. It's a cycle, right? See, the thing is that people don't realize that when you have a strong man, you have to teach your son to be strong. You have to teach him how you acquired your strength. See, the main problem that men have is they make good times. They make easier times for their children, and they allow their children to enjoy those times instead of seeing how you made those good times happen. Mm-hmm. See, look at the 1%. How do they stay wealthy for generations and generations and generations? It's because they let them know how they do things. When their sons reach a certain age, it's like, all right, you coming with me to this business meeting. When their sons hit a certain age, it's like, all right, come on, you're gonna be with me. You're gonna be with me from now on. Watch me do this. Why? Because only strong men can make strong men. If you make good times, but you don't teach it, but your son isn't there to see how you created good times, those good times are going to turn hard really fast. Fathers are the gatekeepers of their legacy. This entire process of them raising their sons, what they were doing is they were creating a vessel that could not only complete their legacy, but increase it. They're the gatekeepers for their legacy. So when it's time for their son to go and find a wife, I'm not going to allow you to take a woman that is going to compromise what I built. Right? So fathers, when raising a son, are doing so in effort to create a product that is like him. So who will also go on and do the same thing with their children, right? That you essentially what's supposed to happen is the grandfather should be seen in his grandson and his great-grandson and in his great-great-grandson. Why? Because if you create a product like yourself and your son is creating a product like himself, that means that image is seen throughout all generations forever. That's how you live on. Mm-hmm. You can't forget the grandfather because everybody just like him. Right? Therefore, fathers having a say in who their sons would marry was paramount in making sure that their sons continued their legacy, not only in character, but also in faith, morals, and traditions. Keep this in mind on a deeper level. The mother is the one that instills the traditions and rules of the household within the children. I'm going to say that again. Pay attention here. Lock in. It says, keep in mind, the mother instills the traditions and the rules of the household within the children. In a sense, she's the one implementing her husband's or her father-in-law's identity within the children. She's the stamp. If you're not marrying a woman that is going to help you pass on your legacy to your children, you'll be lost. That's why it's so important to him who his sons marry. Essentially, her job is to take you and put you on her children. Okay, so if I'm right, my husband is like his father. He's a carbon copy of his father. So essentially what she's doing is she's taking her husband and putting her husband in her children. But in a way, what she's doing is just taking the grandfather and putting him into the children. Because they're the same. The two are the same, right? It's the same thing as what we see in terms of the spirit realm, right? You have the Most High, you have Christ, right? Christ is the perfect image of the Most High. We as men are supposed to walk according to how Christ walked. That means that we should be the image of the Most High in our household. And it's the wife's responsibility to imprint that image of the Most High within her children. So yeah, he cares who his sons marry. He's supposed to. If he doesn't, there's a problem. That means he doesn't care about legacy. He doesn't care about how he's going to be remembered. Well, all of this is ideal. We understand that one of the curses of our people is fatherlessness. This means that single members must lean on their mentors. Yes, we will be implementing mentorship within the church. That means that elder women who are unmarried, single women who are unmarried, elder women who are married, and younger women who are getting or are married. Right? There's going to be mentorship. This means that members must lean on their mentors and on their leadership, their elders, bishops, and deacons, to make the right call regarding whether or not someone is a favorable match for you. Because if you've built a relationship with these people based on honesty and trust, your mentors and your leadership, they'll be able to tell you, nah, bro, that's not the one. Or nah, sister, nah, not him. That's not what you need. Keep looking. Or keep waiting. And if you're not patient enough, or if you're not willing to listen to counsel, you're going to miss what would have been a great situation in exchange for a bad one. You're going to be sitting there looking like, man, if I had only listened, I would, shoot, you was interested in me. You was the cream of the crop. And now you're sitting here stuck with Bozo the Clown because it's not, your mentor, your leadership told you, no, not that one, wait. Because you weren't patient and you didn't want to listen to your leadership, you missed out on what the Most High actually had on you because you wanted what you wanted. Jacob could have missed out on what the Most High had for him. Rachel wasn't the wife that the Most High chose. Rachel was the wife Jacob wanted. Wasn't the wife that the Most High chose. The Most High chose Leah. But because she wasn't as flashy, Leah wasn't ugly. She was just the problem with Rachel is she wasn't taken care of the same way Rachel was taken care of. And we're gonna see some evidence of that later on in this lesson. Leah was the wife that the Most High chose. When it's that word tender in the Hebrew meant fatigued or tired. Leah itself, the name means tired, right? And eye means look. She had a tired or fatigued look. She didn't have on all the makeup and the jewelry and looking all flashy and everything like that. Rachel did. So Rachel was the eye catcher. But ask me this. If Rachel was the wife that the Most High chose, why couldn't she have children? Not to mention, she wouldn't have had children if Leah hadn't made the mistake of giving her 2 mandrakes. If you read the book of Joshua, it lets you know that her giving her the 2 mandrakes was her surrendering 2 children.
Mm.
Rachel wasn't supposed to have any children. Jacob chose to be married next to Leah, which means that in the resurrection, he's coming back with Leah, not Rachel. The Messiah is the Messiah, the lineage of the Messiah came through Leah, not through Rachel. So who did the Most High choose? Who did the Most High choose? He chose Leah. Jacob, even though he wanted Rachel, what he needed, the Most High gave to him. And for all of that time, he was focused on the wrong one. Leah was a trooper. She was a champ. Even while being hated, she did everything she could to please her husband. For the love of her husband. Rachel complained. Rachel couldn't have any children. And she said, "Give me children lest I die." That's a brat, people. Meanwhile, Leah worked. She prayed. Leah was the one that the Most High chose, right? It's the same thing here. Listen to the counsel. Take heed of the Most High. Be patient. If your leaders say no or not right now, they're telling you that for a reason. It's to protect you and your best interest. Last thing you want to do is be in a position where, man, I ended up with such and such. If I didn't even know you liked me. I didn't even know he was interested in me. Now you stuck. Could have had a better situation. So we see that the pre-courting process mostly falls upon the father and the potential groom, and the groom himself. Right? The father of the potential groom and the groom himself. So everything preliminary falls on the man and his father. Right? Mm-hmm. And on the sister side, it falls between the father of the bride and his daughter. Mostly the wife and the father, the wife of the daughter, the mother of the daughter, Salakia. Right? And in place of the father, or included, is the eldership, the leadership. Right? Here, the father or the elder determines that the young man is either ready to accept the position of leadership, and therefore is ready for marriage, or he is ready to become married. Because keep in mind, not every man is going to be a leader, but you have to be capable of upholding that office. Mm-hmm. If we may come to you and be like, "Hey, bro, is ready? We ready to promote you, ready to get you involved," right? And if he says, "Nah, I'm not. I don't think I'm cut out for that," we'll find another office for you. But knowing that you're prepared when you come to us and say, "Hey, elder, I think I'm ready to find a wife," we'll be able to look at that and be like, "Hey, yeah, here's how we're gonna do this." Mm-hmm. Secondly, a set of standards is established for what kind of woman or particular single woman that a young man should seek and take in the courting process. So now we set the standards. This is what you should be looking for. These are the red flags. This is what we suggest. Or the father just lets you know straight out that like her. A man in righteousness, if your father is in righteousness and he sees somebody, trust me, he knows what a virtuous woman looks like. He can be like, "Hey, her. I know my son because guess what? My son followed me around. From the time my son turned 5 years old, he's been following me. So since he was 3, for the last 17 years, you've been with me. I know who you are, and I know exactly what you need. And because you're like me, I'm going to go get you somebody that I would choose. If I wouldn't choose him, mm-hmm. So you're either going to say that one, or this is what you need to be looking for. Go get her. And bring her back to me and make sure I like her, because if I don't like her, it's got to go. Right? For the sisters, they are being prepared for marriage through mentorship from their married and experienced mentors and her covering, whether that be the elders or her father. She's being prepared for the process by other women who are already doing it doing it successfully, and by the people who look out for her souls, her hedge. Right? She continues in this cycle, taking up her duty within the church as suitors seek her out. That means that men look for you. You don't look for men. Ideally, if a young man has everything that is necessary to become married and is properly equipped spiritually, his father figures gives him the green light to find a wife. He finds the sister he's interested in, and the first step is now to go to her father before starting any level of communication with her. So now we're getting into the actual process. So now you've gotten a green light, everything's good to go. You see a sister is like, okay, or your father said that one. So now your first step is to go to either to the elder or to her father. Actually, either way, you need to go to her father first. Or whatever man is in her life that represents her. So say, for example, her father's passed away. Her father isn't in the picture. You want to talk to a brother, some man who's responsible for her, or you're going to go to her elder. Right? And from that point, you go forward from there. But your first communication should not be with her. You should be going to someone to represent her. Right? Let's get Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 6.
Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 6. He that honoreth his father shall have long life.
He that honoreth his father shall have a long life. That means that you reverence them, you respect them. Read.
And he that is obedient unto the Lord shall be a comfort to his mother.
He that is obedient to the Lord is a comfort to his mother. Read.
He that feareth the Lord will honor his father and will do service unto his parents as to his masters.
So he's a servant to his parents. Whatever they need, he makes sure that they have, or that they can get, or that they have access to. Read.
Verse 8. Honor thy father and mother both in word and deed.
Not only in word, that means that you're not going out and spreading any of their business, telling them the mistakes that they made and what they did and all this kind of stuff. Not only in word, but in action. Read.
That a blessing may come upon thee from them.
So check this out. Sisters, look at the way the man carries himself with his parents. Does he talk to his parents any kind of way? Does he take care of them? Does he tend to them like a servant? Because the fact of the matter is that the things that he's doing for his parents, you'll have to do for him. And if he's not willing to do that for his parents, he's not going to respect you. If he can't show honor towards his parents, he's not going to show honor unto you as the weaker vessel. Understand?
What are his views on family as well?
That's huge, because at the end of the day, man's purpose is family. The scriptures say to be fruitful and multiply, right? The kingdom is built up. We went over this in the first lesson. The kingdom is built up off of what? A multitude of families. The foundation of family is marriage. So if his idea of family is skewed, or his desire to have it, or he doesn't have the desire to have a family, dangerous, because family starts with marriage. Even if you don't have children, family is marriage, right? Check out what it says here. It says, honor thy father and mother both in word and deed. That what?
Verse 9. For the blessing of the father establishes the house of the children.
For the blessing of the father establisheth the house of children. Understand. The younger generation throughout the years with the media has caused for this particular generation to take the blessing of the parents less seriously than they should, or than we used to. If the parents disapprove of an action or decision, actually go ahead and read the rest of that. Check it out.
For the blessing of the father establishes the house of the children, but the curse of the mother rooteth out foundations.
It can destroy you. Your parents' blessing can be the best thing, and their curse can be the absolute worst thing for you. So understand, If your parents say no and you decide to say yes and go forward, understand that your situation will be cursed because you've gone out, you've dishonored them. You've gone outside of what their suggestion was for you, of what they wanted from you was. Keep in mind, what they want is what's best for you anyway. If the parents disapprove of an action or decision, or whomever was given or whoever was given charge to guard your soul is in disapproval, it is important to either discuss with them and attempt to change their mind or move forward accordingly. One of those two things got to happen. If they disapprove of something, if they disapprove of a person, if they disapprove of a decision, you better have a good conversation with them, a discussion to try to change their mind or move forward accordingly. Because they don't need to curse you with their mouth. Everything is taken record of in heaven. So if your elder says this is not a good idea, don't do it, and you go and do it, your situation is cursed. Because you went outside of the wisdom that the Most High placed ahead of you for a reason, so that you could use it. Either way, the blessing is required to establish a successful relationship and marriage. That means, guys, you need to get the blessing of the father. You can't just go and take somebody's daughter. That's stealing. Why? Because his daughter is his possession. He who gains a wife, getteth a good possession, gets a possession. It's like no different than going inside somebody's store and stealing from them. The blessing is required. You go into a store and steal from somebody, you're going to jail. You go and take somebody's daughter without their permission, your situation, why is everything going so bad? I thought it was here. You cursed your situation. It's not, marriage is difficult, but it's not supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to be hard. To establish a successful relationship in marriage and a marriage, the blessing is required. The curse can cause many issues down the road. Let's show that a father can disapprove of a man. Exodus chapter 22, verse 17.
Exodus chapter 22, verse 17. If her father utterly refuse to give her unto him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins.
If the father says no, the father says, no, you can't marry my daughter. Try a dowry. And if he says no, too bad. You lost out. The father has the absolute authority. If he says no, he means no. Any man who seeks a wife is taking possession of another man's daughter. This means he has to get permission to do so. He can allow or refuse the proposal of anyone he chooses for any reason he may choose. Just as the terms of engagement may be different from one man to another, so may his requirements. He has that authority. This means that he might ask for a dowry, or he may bring forth terms of the marriage that you have to stick to in order for or he may ask for terms of the marriage that the man must stick to in order to have his daughter for marriage. That means he may set terms. Listen, you are going to do this. We put it on paper. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to provide. This is what's going to happen. If this does not happen, the contract is void. Or he may say, what you got? I don't know you that well. You know, we've gone through this process and everything like that. So you seem to check out. I'm gonna need something for this one. What you got? Right? He can do whatever he wants. It's his daughter, it's his possession. That's like going into a store and telling somebody, man, I'm only gonna pay this for this. I was like, bet, go somewhere else. Maybe somebody else's store got it for that price, not this one. Follow me here. Keep that in mind because I'm going to show you something. We're going somewhere, and when you see it, it's going to be interesting. This, however, is where an extra step is inserted by the church. This is where we insert a part of it. This is where we insert here. Times are different now than they were back before cell phones. Follow us where we're going here. Put a 1 in the chat if you're following. There was a time in which the only people you knew and married were those within your vicinity or from the families you were familiar with. It's people that you know. But now the world is much bigger than it once was. And relationships in tight communities we once knew are now past. We're in the internet era. People are meeting people from further away than they were before. Majority of marriages that we witness today, in particular in the US, at some point are long distance 75% of the time. I'm going to say that again. Majority of the marriages we witness today, particularly in the US, at some point or another are long distance 75% of the time. And that means at some point in a relationship, it's long distance 75% of the time. We also know that 30% of relationships in 2023 start online. 30%. That's a large amount. The church prefers that members try to remain within the church for their marriages, as it is easier to gauge the background of any particular person to give the best advice. Why? Because the way that the hierarchy within the church goes, you have your presiding elder, which is the elder, which is the elder Nathaniel over the entire church. You have your 12 counsel which are over all the regions. You have your local elders, which are over particular areas. You have your bishops that report to the local elders and your deacons that report to your bishops. And the deacon is responsible for a certain amount of families under them, right? That means that no one slips through the cracks. Everyone will be tended to and made sure that everyone knows what's going on with who at all times, right? So if you decide to go and you want to go into a courtship with somebody else within the church, and that person is under a deacon, another deacon, that deacon can go to another deacon and be like, hey, what you got on this person? What do you know about him? Or they can go to the bishop and say, hey, what do you know about this person? Everybody knows about somebody, what they're dealing with, what they're going through, their mentors. That way, the deacon over this person and the deacon over that person, right? And their mentors can come together and sit and have a powwow and be like, all right, what's going on with this person? Tell me everything. And that way they have a complete list. All right, therefore they can say, okay, they're a good match. Let's move forward. They're a good match, but not right now. They're not a good match. They need to go their separate ways, or these people have too many issues. But no, that's the way it's going to work, right? But at no case, at any point ever, will there ever be a courtship with someone who's not baptized. And the reason why is because the scriptures say, how can two walk together lest they be agreed? If you guys have two completely different understandings on doctrines, morals, religions, you will not have a successful marriage, because now you're teaching your children two separate things and you're living according to two separate things, and a house divided against itself can't stand. So don't ever think that you can go to your deacons, your bishops, your elders, and think that you can come with somebody who's outside of the church and start a courtship. What needs to happen is that person needs to come into the body, get up under a deacon, learn under that deacon, come into the full knowledge and the doctrine, and go through counseling for whatever the case might be. And when that person is ready, we'll let you know. That way we have at least time to build a file on this person. We know what you're getting into, because keep in mind, we're responsible for the souls within this church. So if something from without the church is trying to come in, it is our responsibility to make sure that our people, the people within this hedge, are protected. So it's not to keep you from anything, it's to protect you from something.
Well said.
This means that the person nor their parents or guardian oftentimes know nothing about the families or the person's reputation prior to dating, quote unquote, dating. So 75% of relationships at one point or another are long distance, and 30% of relationships start online. Right? So because of this, oftentimes in these situations, you don't know anything about these people's family, where they come from, really who they are. Am I wrong?
You only know what they tell you, really.
You only know what they tell you. So in these cases, this is why we handle things the way that we handle them, so that no one is blindsided. We inserted this part of the process, the proving, quote unquote, proving part of the process, because it gives you and the other participating party time to learn about each other and their families. It's not like you can just go on reputation like they did back in the day. Let's prove it. Let's go to Tobit chapter 7, verse 2.
Tobit chapter 7 and verse 2.
Mm-hmm.
Then said Raguel to Edna, his wife, how like this young man to Tobit, my cousin.
So he's speaking to Tobias. Tobias is here in his house, and Raguel says to his wife, he's like, man, don't he look just like Tobit? Man, I'm telling you, he looked like Tobit. He talked like Tobit, walked like Tobit. Look, don't he, babe? Look at him. Look at it. Don't he? Read.
And Raguel asked him, from whence are ye, brethren?
He said, where you from? Read.
To whom they said, we are of the sons of
Naphtali. Read.
Which are captives in Nineveh.
So he's like, so Tobias and the angel that accompanied him, he said, we're from Naphtali, from the tribe of Naphtali. We're captives in Nineveh. What does he say? Read.
Then he said to them, do ye know Tobit, our kinsman?
He's like, oh, do you know my cousin Tobit then? You might know Tobit. Read.
And they said, we know him.
Mm-hmm.
And then said he, is he in good health?
He said, he's like, do you know him? Like, yeah, we know him. He said, how's he doing? How's his health? Read.
Verse 5. And they said, he is both alive and in good health.
Mm-hmm.
And Tobias said, he is my father.
So now Tobias has revealed that that Tobit is his father. He's alive, he's well, and he's my dad. Read.
Verse 6. Then Raguel leaped up and kissed him and wept,
mm-hmm.
and blessed him and said unto him, art thou the son? Thou art the son of an honest and good man.
So he knows the reputation of Tobit. He loves Tobit. And because of this, he's now connected everything that he knows about Tobit to his son. He's like, man, I know Tobit being the man that he is, he wouldn't have raised anything less than himself. Read.
But when he had heard that Tobit was blind, he was sorrowful and wept. And likewise, Edna his wife and Sarah his daughter wept.
Mm-hmm.
Moreover, they entertained them cheerfully. And after that, they killed a ram of the flock and set store of meat on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Then Tobias to Raphael.
Raphael is the angel. Read.
But Azarias, speak of those things which thou didst talk in the way, and let this business be dispatched.
So now he's saying, okay, we've eaten, we've enjoyed ourselves. Now it's time to talk business. He says, time to talk business. Right? So notice here that Tobit, that because Raguel was familiar with Tobit, his cousin, he now knows everything he needs to know about Tobias. His level of comfort went up. So they hosted a feast, they enjoyed themselves, and now Raphael and Azariah said, all right, it's time to talk business. Right? Raguel was not hesitant to give his daughter to Tobias because of Tobit's great reputation for being a righteous man. They are also familiar with each other because they are distant family, they're cousins. Something similar takes place with Bethuel and Rebekah concerning Abraham and Isaac. Also with Laban and Jacob regarding Rachel and Leah. Bethuel and Laban, Bethuel is the father of Rachel. Bethuel and Laban both knew the reputation of the men and the family they would be giving their daughters to. Therefore, there was no reason to send them through a long process of engagement. So because they already knew who they were talking to, it's like, well, shoot, ain't no reason to send you through a process. I mean, we know you. We know your family. You come from good people. You come from good people. You must be good people. You presented yourself to me. You didn't go and try to steal my daughter. So, hey, come on. Let's do it. The rules of engagement were different.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, there's going to be some scenarios in this church where there's children that are being born in this church that will be raised in this church. And guess what? The families are going to know each other. Full lifetime. Right? So that means that their courting process is going to be shorter. A year.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Put a one in the chat if you're following me. However, if this is not the case, and the families are not familiar with one another on a close-knit level, meaning that they know each other very well, there must be a process in place for the man and the woman to learn about each other and their families. Right? You're not just proving the woman. She's not just proving you. Your families are proving both of you.
That's right.
That means that that person must be willing to present themselves. Right? They have to be willing to present themselves before your father, your mother, and your family.
And beware of those that don't want to do that.
If anybody who wants to stay away, stay in the dark, no, don't tell them about me yet. No, I'm not coming. I don't want to be wary of that. Be afraid of that. Right? Because these people need to be able to know, okay, I need to know who this guy is. I need to learn about this guy. He needs to be, or the sister, they need to be around us. Mm-hmm. Do they fit with us? Especially for the sisters, because sisters, you got to understand, you are leaving your family and coming underneath this man's family. You're leaving under your family and going underneath this man's family. That means you have to have a pretty good relationship with them. That means that the father has to be okay with her. She has to be okay with his father. She has to be okay with his mother. His mother has to be okay with her. Can't bring somebody in that's causing division because nobody like her. I don't care if you don't like her. She's my wife. And now, now you can't nobody come to the Passover dinner without somebody looking at somebody crazy. That's not the way it's supposed to go. If it's the right one and it's the one the Most High chose, guess what? It's going to line up just like how it's supposed to line up. Isaac loved Rebecca. Abraham loved Rebecca. Abraham loved Rebecca. He hadn't even met her yet. He didn't choose her himself. But he knew because of the standard that he set when he sent his servant, oh, she's great. Mm-hmm. In fact, she's a lot like Sarah. Right? This is what is called the proving part of the process. This is called the proving part of the courtship process that we went over earlier, where you're now seeing, okay, friendship. Can this person be a friend to me? Mm-hmm. Can I talk to them about anything? Can I communicate with them about anything? How well do we communicate? What issues does this person have? Can he overcome those issues? All of this is determining, okay, how does he react in these situations? How many of you put a one in the chat if you have a friend, if you have a really close friend, right? If you have a best friend, per se.
In the room.
Hands up. Anybody in here got a best friend? Do you know how they're going to react in every situation? Have you been around them long enough to know how they're going to react? Chances are, if I tell you this or if I do this, I know how you're going to react. Right? It should be the same way with the person that you're proving. That's what you're hoping to learn. That's what I'm hoping to learn. But in order to be able to see all of those things take place, you need time to see that take place. Mm-hmm. And now by the time you come to the end of the courtship, we're friends. Why? Because we're like each other anyways. Mm-hmm. The reason why Adam and Eve clicked is because Eve literally came from Adam. They were the same. It's like, hey, we like the same stuff. Mangoes over grapes. Woo! right? It's like, there has to be some level of familiarity and friendship involved between the two. There has to be. And what you're seeing over this time is, are we friends? And once we become friends, now guess what we can become? We can become business partners. Let's build a legacy. Right? While it is important to learn about the other person in the proving process, the most important thing for the assumed bride is to build a strong relationship with her future in-laws. This is speaking specifically to you, sisters. Your job is to build as close of a relationship with your in-laws as possible. Why? Because they'll tell you everything you need to know about that brother. Mothers won't fail to embarrass. And fathers are going to be very blunt. Listen, this, and this. He working through it, but this, and this. Watch out for those three things. But other than that, he's a good dude. Raised him well. He's always around me. Did this. They're going to tell you everything you need to know. You build a close relationship with them. You build a closer relationship with his father. Guess what? By you building a close relationship with his father, now you get to see him in marriage. Why? Because if that father has done his job of creating a carbon copy of himself, by you building a relationship with him, you're gonna know that man, your future husband. Not only that, but you're gonna know who he is in a marriage setting. Because guess what? He's gotten a chance to see his father in a marriage setting. And if he's just like his father, he's gonna be like his father in a marriage setting. So you get to see both. So the most important part of the proving process for the bride is to build a relationship with your in-laws. Right? Because they can let you know about the more intricate aspects of who he is. Same thing goes for the brothers, but it's more important for the sisters because you have to know what you're getting into. You have to know what you're getting into. You have to. Men have a little bit more control in their situation. Women do not. You have to know that you know that you know that you want to be with this dude. That he's the one that the Most High chose for you. Because if you don't know that you know that you know, and you get into a sticky situation, you ain't going unless he wants you gone. Let's get Proverbs chapter 11, verse 14.
Proverbs 11 and 14. Where no counsel is, the people fall.
Where no counsel is, the people fall. Read.
But in the multitude of counselors, there is safety.
But in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. Let's get Proverbs chapter 15, verse 22.
Proverbs 15 and 22. Without counsel, purposes are disappointed.
Read that again.
Without counsel, purposes are disappointed.
Read.
But in the multitude of counselors, they are established.
Another enormous aspect of the proving process is counsel, especially if the parents of the bride and the groom are not in the church or not in the truth. The counsel of parents concerning their son or daughter, and the counsel of leadership in the church is how to handle certain issues or situations that may arise. You have to have counsel. In a sense, it's the same thing. Counsel is the same as having a chaperone. Mm-hmm. You have to have somebody that you can go to and talk to about your situation, about what's going on, about how you're feeling, about what you may encounter, about situations that you run into, about something that you might have heard that you need to ask a question about. Right? These people will be married and ideally have gone through the process of being married according to the scriptures to give proper advice. These people were set in that position for a reason. They've been married, they've had a successful marriage, and they've ideally eventually will have gone through the entire process to become married. So they understand the process as well. They will be there to hold both sides accountable and to keep either side from falling to temptation or sin. Read Proverbs chapter 11, verse 14 again.
Proverbs chapter 11, verse 14. Where no counsel is, the people fall.
If you're doing something for the first time and you don't have and have an instruction manual, you will jack it up 3 or 4 times before you get it right. So now what are you doing? You're building up scar tissue. You're just getting hurt and more hurt and more hurt and more hurt. And if that situation doesn't work out, you're carrying all of that scar tissue with you into the next relationship. Where no counsel is, people fall. People make mistakes. You put yourself in situations where now you're in trouble. You've made mistakes, right? It says, but in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. We have people that you can go to and you have people that you can talk to. There's no room for darkness to squeak in. Let's get Proverbs 15 and 22 again.
Without counsel, purposes are disappointed.
Without counsel, purposes are disappointed. Raise your hand if you know what that means. Purposes are disappointed. Without this accountability readily available, things can and will go off. Right? They will go off. And the purpose for which the process started will quickly become spoiled. And it will be more tumultuous than it otherwise should be. The purpose of becoming married is to build a happy relationship, to build legacy, right? The purpose is to enjoy, right? But without counsel in the marriage and before the marriage and during the process, you're shooting in the dark. Or you're going at this thing alone. And now you both put yourself in positions alone where if you're weak, you fall, you're in trouble. You've made mistakes. Now both sides are damaged. So the purpose of the entire thing has now become spoiled. The original purpose has gone entirely off from what it was supposed to be. And now your work is to get it back on track. And now the situation that you were supposed to be in, that was supposed to, listen, like I said, marriage is difficult. It's not supposed to be hard. If you do it wrong, it's going to be way more tumultuous than it otherwise should be. That's why counsel is so important. Making sure that you're going and having weekly conversations about where you're at in your headspace, where you're at emotionally, where you're at physically, where you're at spiritually, all those things you need to be walking through and talking. And when you're meeting with these people, you need to have somebody who you can be accountable to according to the Most High. So that's your purpose, so that the purpose doesn't become spoiled. Let's get Jeremiah 29 and 5.
Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 5. Build ye houses.
We came back to this. Remember, I told you we're coming back to this one. Go ahead.
Build ye houses and dwell in them, and plant gardens, and eat the fruit of them. Take ye wives, and beget sons and daughters, and take wives for your sons, and give your daughters to husbands, that they, Salakia, that they may bear sons and daughters, that ye may be increased there, and not diminished.
Prior to men starting families, we went over this earlier in the lesson. Prior to men starting families, they were commanded by the Most High to first build their houses and create something as a means to support their family, a foundation, right? That's why it says plant gardens and eat the fruit of them, right? Remember how I said finances aren't everything? Sometimes you don't need them. If you're in a position where you don't need finances, we got our own food, we got our own cattle over here, we got this, listen, you're solid, right? This is essentially what he was asking these men to build. This order remains the same in the process of courtship. While the man does not have to have an elaborate situation put together, as it's becoming more and more difficult in today's time to accomplish this alone. It's way more difficult to establish a household than it was even 10 years ago. It was easier. It's way more difficult now. Nobody's asking you to have this elaborate situation set up. But men are expected to have a means of acquiring their own place, having their own place, or a steady form of income prior to entering into courtship. If you are employed and making a good amount of money, that's a great start. Jacob had to get employed first. Jacob didn't have nothing. Jacob had to get employed first. And he started the process of marriage with Laban while he got employed. Why? Because Laban knew he's employed, he got the money, he's gonna have the money and the means to support my daughter anyways. So he was able to start the process. Nobody's asking you to be, what's being asked of you is to create a form in which you can now begin to a foundation on which you can build your house. Why is this important to the why is this an important point in the process post-proving, right? So once we get to the post-proving process, why is this important? This because after the proving stage, you enter into engagement. You're now engaged, right? And in engagement, both sides begin to prepare for marriage. So you've exited the proving process. It's determined. You guys are great. Everything's perfect. Boom, boom, boom. Now you've exited the proving process and entered into the engagement process. Engagement process is anywhere between 3 and 4 months, right? And this is where both sides begin to prepare for marriage. This means that they begin looking for a mutual location to move into, or the woman prepares to move in with the man. In no case, ever should a man move into a woman's house. Ever. This is because the home belongs to her. Therefore, you cannot come in and usurp authority over something you didn't work to obtain.
Say that one more time.
This is because that home belongs to her. Therefore, you cannot come in and you usurp authority of something you did not work to obtain. She's going to look at you sideways. Like, bro, hold on. What? You coming here trying to shake things up. Like, hold on. I've been doing this for a long time. You want to have either a neutral meeting site where you guys can begin to build together, or she needs to come with you. The idea is to build and or grow together. She's going to take what you have and increase it, or you're going to go and get something new and build it. Let's get Ecclesiastes chapter 42, verse 6. Check this out.
Ecclesiastes chapter 42, verse 6.
We're going into the final stages. We're coming to a close. Go ahead.
Deliver all things in number and weight, and put all in writing that thou givest out, or receivest in.
It says that's a receipt. That's inventory. Sirach says, deliver all things in number and in weight, and put it all in writing, what thou givest out, what you're giving away, and what you're taking in. It's a receipt. Read. Check this out.
Be not ashamed to inform the unwise and foolish, and extreme aged that contendeth with those that are young. Thus shalt thou be truly learned and approved of all men living.
So it's saying, put every transaction in writing. Guys, what is marriage? A transaction, a business transaction. That means that marriage requires paper. If a dude come to you talking about something, we're married in the spirit, and I say that the way that I do because it's happened, and we've seen it happen, where you got a dude who's legally married to an entirely other woman, and talking about something, well, we don't need to get no legally married. We don't need no document because we married in the spirit. Brothers and sisters. Receipts. Why? Because it says here, be not ashamed to inform the unwise and the foolish in the extreme age that contendeth with those that are young. You are young. And because you are young, people are going to try to slap you on the head.
and say, nah, we ain't agree to that. That's not what we agreed to.
Mhm.
Happened to Jacob.
Good point.
So when you make an agreement, like a marriage agreement, you get it in writing. The covenants, it's a contract that all parties sign. So that way, if somebody comes and tries to say later, nah, I didn't agree to that. Somebody try to come to you and be like, no, that's not what we agreed to. That's not what this, you signed it. You autographed it. It's notarized. It's a legal document. You signed that you will be married. That is the terms of agreement, the terms of marriage. So yes, in marriage, you take paper. Marriage is legal. You need to get that thing legalized. Ain't no, we married in the spirit. We don't need to get no paper. We don't need to write nothing down. None of that. Okay, so you want me to trust your word, is what you're saying.
Joe fall for that.
Jacob did 14 years taking somebody's word.
Mhm.
The final steps of engagement towards marriage is that they must be legally documented and binding. This is to avoid any confusion in regards to agreements made between the father and the probable groom. And we're going to get into a little bit more detail as to what can go wrong by somebody not legally getting married. Because yes, there is marriage within this church. People get married within this church. Yes, there's documentation that we have of the marriage to protect ourselves and to protect our members. But the legal aspect protects you in another way. Marriage is a transaction. And for every transaction, there must be a receipt. Put a 1 in the chat if you're following. Within the church, the deacon, the bishop, and the local elder over each marrying party will fill out a marriage contract that will be signed by the groom and the father of the bride, detailing the terms of the transaction. Remember, a little bit earlier, we went over the hierarchy and the way that it works in the church, right? You have your presiding elder, Elder Nathaniel. You have your local elders, right? Over certain regions, over the six continents, your 12 local council elders. And then you have your bishops under your bishops under them and your deacons under them. The deacons, each deacon is responsible for 3 families or 3 individuals, 3 men and their families. So that means that the deacon that the groom came from under and everybody above him, and the deacon that sister came from and everybody above her are going to get together and they're going to come up with a marriage contract with the father of the bride. And they're going to sit down with the father of the bride and the groom, and they're going to write up a marriage contract. The document will be notarized, making it legally binding, and it will be autographed. That's a thumbprint with ink. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
It will be notarized, and it will be autographed by the 2 parties as well as the bride to show that she consents to the marriage. So the bride will sign and autograph it as well. The local elder, the bishop, and the deacon will also sign the document. And the local elder will keep the original copy for the church. We will archive it and provide a certificate and a copy of the marriage contract to the couple and the father of the bride. So everyone will have a copy of the marriage contract, and the couple will receive a marriage certificate from the church. Make sense? Put a 1 in the chat if you're following me. This covers all the bases.
Yep.
That means that nobody's left in the dark. Every term of the transaction is all written in that contract, and everybody signed it. So if something goes down and somebody decides they want to get backhanded, we got 6 people on deck ready to have a conversation about what was in that contract. And should it be something that's a bigger issue, it'll climb up the ranks to the council elders and it'll come to the presiding elder. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at this contract. We're going to look at the local elder, the bishop, and the deacon who all signed this contract. And we're going to say, what happened here? Nothing and no one slips through the cracks. The couple will also be required to become married underneath the state in which they reside or the country in which they live in order to avoid any possible loopholes or issues that can arise. Why do people need to get married legally? Because somebody can tell you that they're divorced or that they've never been married, and lo and behold, still married. Mm-hmm. You can't legally get married twice. See how the protocols we put in are put in to protect you? So you get married through the church. We document it. You get married legally. That's documented. You provide documented proof. That way we know that nobody in either of these situations is being backhanded. Sister done told you that she divorced or she's never been married. Lo and behold, got a whole family over here. Mm-hmm. Or dude, same thing. We got a whole dude, man, I'm divorced. Mm-hmm. Trust me, we've heard that one. Yep. Yeah, we don't need to get married legally because we're doing this according to the scriptures, according to the Most High. But I'm divorced though. Listen, we don't take nobody's word for nothing. And this is to protect the church, and it's to protect you. We are responsible for your soul. So we aren't going to allow anybody coming in here to jack that up. So after the marriage has taken place, which means that the church has binded the marriage, the marriage is legally binding according to the state or country in which you live. The daughter at that point, the bride, the wife, would now be transferred underneath the leadership that the man is currently under, which means that she was under this elder, bishop, and deacon. She now comes underneath the elder, bishop, and deacon of the man. Passing. We see this exact thing take place with Tobit and his wife Edna concerning their daughter Sarah and Tobias. See, y'all think we ain't had no proof about this. Go ahead and get that. Tobit chapter 7, verse 13. What did Raguel and Edna do? Read.
Tobit chapter 7, verse 13. Then he called his daughter Sarah, and she came to her father, and he took her by the hand and gave her to be wife to Tobias, saying, Behold, take her after the law of Moses.
Take her after the law of Moses. So Tobias came to Raguel and asked his permission to marry his daughter Sarah. Raguel, knowing the good reputation and name of Tobias' father Tobit, gave his daughter to him. Notice how there was no proving process involved. He's like, listen, I already know that man. That's my cousin. And he gave his daughter to him, commanding him to take her after the law of Moses. Now, a lot of people think that this means, the procedure. Take her after the law of Moses. It means that you do it based off the procedure in Moses. No, that's not what this means. This meant that Tobias had his blessing if he married her under a certain doctrinal understanding and law. How many of you guys ever read it that way or understood it that way? See, a lot of times they say take her after the law of Moses. It just means, take her according to the law of Moses, just procedure-wise. No, it's a condition. Him saying take her after the law of Moses is a condition. Notice he could have said any God. He could have said take her after the law of Ra. Take her after the law of Jesus. Take her after the law of Zeus. No, he said take her after the law of Moses. It's a condition. Raguel could have said to take his daughter after any law, tradition, or custom. Instead, he chose Moses based off of what he knew about his cousin Tobit and his manner, the way he behaved. This was not a request. It was part of the agreement. If you take my daughter, you need to take her under the doctrinal understanding that we know about Moses. That means that every law that's in there, you need to be keeping. That means that you need to treat her according to the law of Moses. It's a doctrinal condition. If I find out that you're serving any other God other than the one that was given by the law of Moses, it's off. We're not doing it. It's a condition. It was a requirement. When they take paper, that was written in the contract. He's taking her after the law of Moses. That wasn't procedure. That was a condition. He's like, if you're going to marry my daughter, you need to marry her serving the same God that your father serves. And if at any point you decide to stop serving that God, it's done. Contract's void. Hence why 1 Corinthians, remember what it said, if the husband be unbelieving, or if the wife be unbelieving and they're not happy to dwell together, they can go their separate ways and not be tied to one another. Boom. If one decides that they don't want to keep the law of Moses, you took her after the law of Moses. If you decide at one point, oh man, I don't think I want to do this no more. I think I want to be a Buddhist now. He violated the contract. Therefore, the marriage is no longer legally binding. You bring that, we find out that that's the case, and you guys want to go forward in separation and divorce. If this person, listen, he ain't keeping the law of Moses no more. He's leaving. He ain't doing this. That bring us contract. Boom, void. Renotarized. Everybody signed it. Same thing again. When he said take her after the law of Moses, that was a condition. He could have said to take her after anything else. He said take her after the law of Moses. He was saying he needed to deal with his daughter according to the law of Moses. This was a promise of conduct. This is the way that you will conduct yourself with my daughter. I won't accept anything less than this if you're going to marry my daughter. Based on this promise, he blessed their union. Based on that promise, he blessed their union. Notice he didn't say anything else. You take her after the law of Moses. I'm not asking you for money. I'm not asking you for cattle. I'm not asking you for this. I'm not asking you for that. I'm not asking you for service. I'm asking that you take her after the law of Moses. And if you can do that, I bless the union. Read.
Take her after the law of Moses and lead her away to thy father.
He said, and lead her away to thy father. Read.
And he blessed them. Verse 14. And called Edna his wife and took paper.
And took what?
Took paper.
And took what?
Took paper.
Read.
And did write an instrument of covenant.
And did write an instrument of what?
Covenants.
People, the definition of covenant is legal contract. Look it up. The definition of a covenant is a legal contract. So he called Edna, said, bring me some paper and an instrument to write with. And what he did was he wrote an instrument of, he wrote a covenant, an instrument of covenants. This is what he's promising to do, and he's going to take my daughter. Read.
And sealed it.
And he put a seal on it. It was notarized. Legally binding. So for all those people that talk about something, we don't need no contract, you don't need to get no legal papers about, nah, none of that. You take paper, you write an instrument of covenants, you make a legal contract, you sign it, and you seal it. That's exactly what this church is going to be doing for every single marriage. No shortcuts, no nothing. So now that they've sealed it, they've gotten the signatures and notary. So now you guys see that the process we set up is according to the scriptures. We didn't just set this up willy-nilly because we wanted to. You get a legal contract drawn up, you seal it, signatures and notary, and now you enjoy. Read.
Verse 15. Then they began to eat.
After this, they began the celebration. This is the final two steps of the marriage process, of the process to becoming married. A lot of times, now I want to get into something before we go into these last two steps. A lot of times, sisters, I'm going to ask y'all this. A lot of times when you hear the teachers talk about marriage, or we talk about marriage, it makes it seem as if the daughter's marriage is less important than the son's marriage. It's less important to the father than their sons being married. Do you guys view it that way? Have you guys seen it that way? Raise your hand if that's the case. If you're in the chat, put a 1. Do you guys feel that it's being presented that fathers take their sons' marriages more seriously than their daughters? Do you guys view it that way? That the significance is different, where it's like they care more about their sons being married than their daughters. Or hey, this dude came, he had the money, he had the money and the finances. So hey, you can just go ahead and take my daughter. But they just give their daughters away like candy. That couldn't be further from the truth. They're on the same level of importance, but his daughter's marrying process is of a far higher level of danger and concern than his son's. Fathers take their daughters being married more seriously than their sons because there's fear involved. There's a higher level of danger in them giving away their daughters. That's a baby girl, and they're giving them to another guy. And men know how guys can be. Let's get Ecclesiastes chapter 42, verse 9. Y'all don't believe me?
Ecclesiastes chapter 42, starting at verse 9.
What does it say?
The father waketh for the daughter when no man knoweth.
He said, now take some time. Don't take no notes. Just listen to this. Just hear this. It says, the father waketh for the daughter, not his son. He waketh for the daughter when no man knoweth. He's in the middle of the night. He's waking up. Read.
And the care for her takes away sleep.
He said, and his care for her takes away. He loses sleep over his daughter. From the time that she's born to the time that she's eventually married, he fears. He loses sleep about this young lady. Why? Read.
When she is young.
When she's young.
Lest she pass away the flower of her age. And being married, lest she should be hated.
He said he fears for her getting married. Who she'll marry. How that man will treat his daughter. He's waking up in the middle of the night thinking about this. Elder, you got plenty of daughters. And how much is the thought of what's to come a stress?
I would not wish on anybody to tell you that.
This is why I've always said, I don't want no daughters. I can't do that. That's a certain level of strength I don't know that I have. It says the care for her taketh away sleep when she is young, lest she pass away the flower of her age and being married. He's thinking years down the road from the time that the second he holds his baby girl for the first time in his arms, he's thinking, dang, this girl. Oh man. He said, and what if this man that she's given to doesn't love her the way that I love her? What if he doesn't treat her the way that I treat her? What if he doesn't care for her the way that I care for her? Read.
Verse 10. In her virginity, lest she should be defiled and gotten with child in her father's house.
He said, lest somebody goes and steals my daughter and she has a child in my house. She is pregnant out of wedlock. She gets left. She's left alone with her child for me to have to carry the bag. I'm left alone with the bag. She's left alone with the bag. He fears about that. Because guess what? Long-term decision, those situations weigh more heavily on you all than it does on men. Long-term, because you have to carry the situation. He fears for that. He thinks about these scenarios. Read his worst fears. Read.
And when having a husband, lest she should misbehave herself, and when she is married, lest she should be barren.
He fears that she won't act right in her marriage. Man, they're gonna think that I ain't raised my daughter right. What if she get to this dude and she start tripping and they look at me like I'm the one who jacked this thing up? He thinks, what if she can't have children? What if my daughter can't have children? All of these things he wakes up in the middle of the night worrying about concerning his daughter, not concerning his son. Why? Because sisters, you realize you're being given into the possession of another man. That's dangerous. So he takes that transaction seriously. Read.
Verse 11. Keep sure watch over a shameless daughter.
He said, keep sure watch over over a shameless daughter, a girl who's fast. Read.
Lest she make thee a laughing stock to thine enemies.
Lest she make thee a laughing stock to thy enemies. He would be like, dang, bro, what you got going on here, bro? Like, whoa, what's happening over there? See, now it's acceptable. A lot of the behavior is acceptable. But these are things that men wake up thinking about with their daughters. Because they know how men can manipulate. Mm-hmm. They know how men can do this, how they can do that to lure you in, and they get you in a situation where you're stuck and you can't get out. Right? They know that. They know it. And because men know that, they're like, man, my daughter, she's vulnerable. And eventually, I'm going to have to release her to be vulnerable to another man. Can I trust that man to treat her the way that I would treat her? I don't know that any man can say yes fully, because we don't know the future. And that's the scariest part of it. You don't know what somebody can become or how they can change. So you're placing your trust in another man to be to his daughter what he was to you as a father. Read.
Going back up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Lest she make thee a laughing stock to thine enemies,
mm-hmm.
and a byword in the city,
mm-hmm.
and a reproach among the people,
mm-hmm.
and make thee ashamed before the multitude.
A father and a mother's daughter being given to the right man is of the utmost importance to them, as if she is being handed over. If she's not being handed over to the right kind of man, it can be dangerous or harmful for her. It can be dangerous. So to the parents, their daughter being given to the right person is of the utmost importance to them. So when your father is looking at a situation or a dude and he's like, no, not that, at least not right now, trust them. If your mother's saying not that, not right now, trust them. Because they have your best interest knowing the situation that you're getting into. Because unlike a situation where, there's no easy way out of the situation. Keep in mind, divorce is a contract. Voiding your previous marriage contract. Question: were you included in the marriage contract, or was that transaction between the father and the groom? That contract was between the father and the groom. You just signatured that you were consenting. So if the contract wasn't between you and the groom, or between you and your father, that means that you aren't included in that contract. Therefore, you have no power to void it. Means you're stuck. So take the counsel. Listen to the wisdom. It's only to protect you. And on a deeper level, this is what made the way Laban dealt with Leah so despicable. It proves that he loved Rachel more than Leah, because he pawned Leah. He tricked Leah just like he tricked Jacob. He used her as a tool to get what he wanted. He didn't care for whether or not he was giving her to a man that was going to love her. He knew that by tricking Jacob would look at Leah as the tool, as the instrument by which he was tricked. He was duped. Because that's what Jacob looked at Leah as initially, as a mistake. He looked at her like a mistake. Laban didn't care. She was despised. She was despised of her father. That's why her name meant tired. She looked weary. Her name means, Leah means weary. She was the one who got all the hard burden and the hard work. She was treated the worst. The reason why Leah wasn't married yet is because nobody wanted her. Because they saw Rachel. Think about that. He just used his daughter like a pawn. That's what made that situation so despicable. But God chose her. The Most High chose Leah. The scripture said that he takes the hated. He takes the things that the world hate to make fools. She was despised. Nobody wanted her. They made it seem as if she was less than. Now, guess what? Every woman would give their left arm to be where she is. She got to be one of the four matriarchs. See, the thing is, we talk about Sarah and Rebecca, but we don't talk about Leah. Leah is buried right with those two women for a reason. Because she was on that level. She got to be in that Abraham and Sarah, that Isaac and Rebecca. Now it's Jacob and Leah. She got to be, and then on top of that, she got to bring forth King David, Solomon, and Christ, some of the greatest men who ever lived. How many women would give anything for that, for opportunity to be that? That's what made what Laban did so despicable. He used her like a pawn. That's not the way that things normally went down. He used her. Right? Let's get Tobit chapter 10, verse 11.
Tobit chapter 10, verse 11.
Mm-hmm.
And he blessed them and sent them away, saying, the God of heaven give you a prosperous journey, my children.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 12. And he said to his daughter, honor thy father and thy mother-in-law. He
said, honor thy father and mother-in-law, read.
Which are now thy parents, that I may hear a good report of thee.
Sound familiar? Sounds like one of the fears that was just written of in Sirach, where it said men wake up in the middle of the night, they lose sleep thinking, like, man, what if she get to these people's house and she make a fool out of me? He said, listen, you honor your father and your mother-in-law. I better not hear nothing bad coming back from these people. Read.
And he kissed her. Edna also said to Tobias.
Now check out what Edna says to Tobias here. Pay close and special attention. Go ahead.
The Lord of heaven restore thee, my dear brother, and grant that I may see thy children of my daughter Sarah before I die, that I may rejoice before the Lord.
She said, listen, I'm asking you, when she has children, let me see. I want to see my grandbabies. Bring them back so I can see my grandchildren. But check out what she says here at the end. Read.
Behold, I commit my daughter unto thee of special trust.
Of what?
Special trust.
Special trust. She's entrusting one of her most coveted and protected possessions to this man. She said, behold, I commit my daughter unto thee. I'm giving my daughter to you of special trust. Read.
Whereof do not entreat her evil.
Do not entreat her evil. Don't treat her wrong. Sounds like another one of the fears that the father has in Ecclesiastes, where he says, what if she gets married and he hates her? This links directly back to what it was stating. Take her after the law of Moses. Right? Take her after the law. There's a code of conduct. It wasn't a request, it was a term of agreement. You need to treat her right righteously, according to the law of Moses, according to scriptures. You treat her right. I've committed my daughter unto you under special trust. This is one of my most coveted possessions. My daughter, one of my most vulnerable possessions. I'm giving her to you. Don't treat her wrong. This addresses the fear of a man hating, the fear of a father having a daughter, giving her to a man and him hating her, or dealing wrongly with her after he's taken her. The proving process is a good time for families to prove the individuals as well. That way, when the marriage happens, they're confident and comfortable that the man that I'm giving you to, I know he's going to do right by you. Read that last part with Edna one more time, what she said.
I commit my daughter unto thee, a special trust.
Special trust. I'm trusting you. Read.
Whereof do not entreat her evil.
Do not entreat her evil. As we see throughout the scriptures with marriage ceremonies, we know that after the marriage, right, the final two steps is the after the proving process, after the engagement, after the documented agreement, there's a feast, right? Now, this feast is held within an intimate group. That means that the immediate families are there, only the contracting members. That's the parents, the parents of both, the parents of the bride, and the groom himself, and the people who are involved in the creation of the contract. They enjoy, they feast, they eat, and it's usually only close families or friends. You keep that group small, right? Because it's an intimate ceremony. Everybody's signing their documents or whatever the case might be, right? That night is the consummation of the marriage, making the entire feast, making that entire feast and that night what's called the consummation ceremony. That's the second to last step in the marriage, when the marriage becomes consummated, right? So the document, you have the documentation, you feast, you eat, that night you consummate the marriage, and the next day is when the wedding festivities begin. Let's get Tobit chapter 7, verse 15.
Tobit chapter 7, verse 15.
Mm-hmm.
Then they began to eat. After Raguel called his wife Edna and said unto her sister, prepare another chamber and bring her in thither.
Mm-hmm.
Which when she had done this, that he had bidden her, she brought her thither, and she wept, and she received the tears of her daughter, and said unto her. So
this was where that was a conversation that Edna had with Sarah prior to her marrying Tobias, or her consummating her marriage with Tobias. Why was Sarah crying? Why did she weep? Because prior to, she had been engaged multiple times, but there was a spirit involved where every time they went to consummate the marriage, the man would die. So her fear was that somebody she cared about, because keep in mind, she cared about Tobias. That's knowing Tobit and the relationship that they had with Tobit, she didn't want him to die. So now you're going into the situation where now her mother had to reassure her before the consummation ceremony. So that was the conversation that took place between Edna and her daughter Sarah. Drop down to Tobit chapter 8, verse 1.
Tobit chapter 8 and verse 1. And when they had supped, they brought Tobias in unto her.
Mm-hmm.
And after they were shut in together, Tobias arose out of the bed and said, Sister, arise, and let us pray that God would have pity on us. And they began Tobias to say, blessed art thou, O God of our father. He's saying a prayer before the consummation of their marriage. Read. And blessed is the holy and glorious name forever. Let the heavens bless thee, and all thy creatures. Thou madest Adam, and gavest him Eve as his wife and helper and stay. Of them came mankind. Read. Thou hast said, it is not good that man should be alone. Let us make unto him an aid like unto himself. So he understands the purpose for which Sarah was created, like we stated earlier. And understanding that purpose, what does he say? Read. And now, O Lord, I take not this my sister for lust, but uprightly.
He said, I'm taking her for the same reason you created Eve. Read.
Therefore, mercifully ordained that we may become heirs together.
He said, bless this marriage, bless this union that we can be together forever. Read.
And she said with him, Amen.
Mm-hmm.
So they wept both that night.
They
Slept both that night.
They consummated the marriage. Read.
And Raguel arose and went and made a grave.
So Raguel was like, all right, brother probably dead. So let me go dig this grave. Now, obviously, Tobias was not dead because he did as he was commanded and made sure that everything was set up to where no spirit could intervene. And he and Sarah were married. So Hebrews, after the feast with the family, after the consummation ceremony, this is the official marriage, and after this is sort of like a reception. So after this, you actually have the wedding festivities, like the actual wedding that you do before people, right? So you have the intimate ceremony, but going into the wedding per se, the actual wedding celebration, the two are already married. They've already gone through and signed the documents or whatever the case might be, right? This is the official marriage. And after that is sort of like a reception where you invite everybody. They come, they enjoy. You do what you do before men. They enjoy the festivities, and the people celebrate the union, right? So these can go, now the Hebrews party, right? So these can go anywhere from 3 to 14 days long. In Tobias's case, it was 14 days long. That means that they celebrated the union and that marriage for 14 days, right? That can vary. Sometimes it's 3 days, sometimes it's 14, but it's all about enjoying the marriage and whatever the case, enjoying the marriage and the union, and everybody, the family's enjoying each other, okay? I'm going to get Tobit chapter 10, verse 7. But she said, hold thy peace and deceive me not. My son is dead. Now, keep in mind, this is Tobit's wife speaking of Tobias because he hasn't returned home yet, right? He said, but she said, hold thy peace and deceive me not. My son is dead. And she went out every day into the way which they went, the way that they left, and did eat no meat on the daytime, and ceased not the whole nights to bewail her son Tobias, until the 14 days of the wedding were expired, which Raguel had sworn that he should spend there. So Raguel said, listen, this ceremony is going to be 14 days. So they enjoyed the wedding festivities or whatever the case might be for 14 days. And when those days were expired, Tobias said to Raguel, let me go, for my father and my mother look no more to see me. He's saying they thinking I'm dead. They probably think I'm dead. I don't think I'm coming back. So I need to pack my stuff and slide. Right? So as you can see, the wedding days last about 14 days of the celebration and commune. So you're enjoying each other, you're enjoying the festivities. The parents are getting to know each other, whatever the case might be. Families are interacting. You know, it's mainly about fun and enjoying one another and enjoying the marriage and celebrating the union. Right? After this, the husband and his new wife move in together and start their new married life. This is where the marriage begins, right? This is where it gets nitty gritty. This is where we get down to the nitty gritty, right? So in the next and final part, we'll be detailing the specifics of how a marriage should operate. We're also going to be detailing what are grounds for divorce. How does divorce work, right? We're going to talk about the dynamic that should exist and how they are to treat and handle one another in righteousness with the understanding that we have based on the previous two parts. So the next part is going to be choosing well, part 3, the marriage. All right, that's the conclusion of today's lesson. All right.
Any questions in the room or in the chat? Any questions? Anybody? Questions or comments?
Y'all ain't got no questions? We had this thing for 3.5 hours. Nobody got no questions?
No questions nowhere? Wow. Good
You got anything in the announcements?
No announcements specifically, no.
Well, what you got?
I have a question. So in today's modern times where single women are single parents, they've been maybe with someone, had a child, or maybe have 3 or 4 baby daddies. How was that situation conducted, considering that they already have children outside of marriage?
Firstly, you have to make sure that there was no marriage agreements prior to, right? That she is not married, right? And from that point, we see it all the time where people might have previous children or whatever the case might be. So in that case, you would need to discuss with her father exactly what went on, how it went on, and come to an agreement as to how the marriage works and how everything is going to work. But the fact of the matter is that if the children have fathers that are involved in a situation, that's something that they're going to have to work out between them and those fathers, and the fathers of those children. If the fathers aren't involved, it's a different situation. You don't have to discuss anything, or whatever the case might be. She's a single mom. You take the children on as your own. Those children become, when you take her as your possession, those children become your possession, right? So, I mean, we see it happen all the time. I mean, I tell people all the time. I think the main thing with that is men being okay with taking women that have a kid or that have a child or having children already. I said this to a friend of mine before. I was like, listen, bro, would you rather be with a woman who has no children, that's going to cause you stress all the days of your life, or one that has one child, but she's going to treat you right and you're going to be happy? Pick. I mean, each one comes with challenges of itself, but you choose your heart. Choose your heart, right? So that's that. And in those particular situations, it would depend on whether or not the fathers are involved. If they are involved, you have to make sure that that situation is all squared away with each of them as far as how this thing is going to work.
Another question here in the chat.
It said, what caused for the curse on Edna's daughter? It was just there. From what we see in Tobit, that curse was there, and it likely had a lot to do with the fact that she was supposed to be married to Tobit. So, I mean, she was supposed to be married to Tobias. So essentially, that's why the Most High commanded. Keep in mind, Raphael knew what would be required for this woman before they went to have her. They already knew who Tobias was going to marry. They knew that it would be Sarah. That's why when Tobias got into the marriage chamber, he already knew what to do to ward off that spirit, right? So they knew what they were walking into before it happened. That spirit was placed there because Sarah was going to be his wife. And Sarah was desirable. She was the desirable wife. Obviously, multiple men took the risk in coming and trying to marry her. So obviously she was coveted. So she was saved. She was saved specifically for Tobias, Salakia.
Any more questions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, say for instance, two individuals get married outside of truth, and they come into truth. They decide to divorce. Is it lawful for them to remarry in the truth, especially if the parents initially, when they were not in the truth, did not approve of the marriage or the union? Is it possible for them to, as they enter into the truth together, or as they come into the truth and they learn more, to remarry in the truth with the parents' blessing?
Are you saying that they were not in the truth?
No, prior to they weren't in the truth.
Okay.
Like they weren't in the truth when they got married. The parents were not on board with the marriage. They got divorced, but now that they're in the truth, they're learning more. They decide that they want to enter into a marriage agreement again. Is that possible?
Of course, they would need to go through the process again, though, to ensure that that's something that they want to do. And they would need to go through counseling as well. See, with situations like that, you have to figure out, okay, if it didn't work back then, I need to know why it didn't work, because it had more to do with just their beliefs. So because previously they weren't, neither of them were in the truth. So you got to figure out what's going on with that. So you would put him through counseling, and then he would have to go about it as if he did not know her.
That means that you go to her father and say, listen, man, I know we got history or whatever the case might be, but this is how we want to do things now. I would like your blessing to marry your daughter. Not to remarry her, but to marry her. Right. So it's you go about things the according to the scriptures, you redo the process, you go through counseling together to figure out what went wrong before and how to get that thing right this go round. And then you will go through that process of doing that again. Okay.
Especially if you didn't have the blessing of either parent, either sex or parent.
Now, granted, in majority of situations in the scriptures, if you've gotten legally married according to the scriptures, you're already in the truth, and you got divorced, you get not going back to that person. That's not the way that works. If you feel like you aren't ready to divorce, you better set up a separation period, a time to be separate, whatever the case, and a lot of time to be separate. But once you divorce and you're in the truth, that's it. That's it. But in those cases where they weren't in the truth and they were ignorant, and now that they've come in and they're trying to do things different, they would go through the process normally as anybody else would.
That answer your question?
Yes.
Anybody else in the room or in the chat?
All right. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate all of your support for the ministry. We have our Cash App for those who would like to support the ministry with finances. All this work costs money, so we appreciate all of your support. It is definitely needed. We got a lot that we're trying to do in these next couple of months, traveling around the U.S.,
exactly.
getting out of the country and going to some of these countries, and they need your support as well. A lot of times with a lot of these ministries overseas. So any amount of support is appreciated. And we thank you for it.
So we're looking at Detroit coming up first, right?
Detroit will be first. We'll be headed into Detroit, and then we'll be going to
the itinerary better.
Detroit, Dallas, Mississippi, Alabama. Okay. Yeah, and then and before all of that, we're headed to Panama to establish out there. So for those who would like to get baptized, if you're in those areas, we're also going to be trying to get to St. Louis. Our brothers and sisters in St. Louis, we haven't forgot about you. Shalom. We love you all. We're going to be trying to get out there. What's up? Oh, yeah, we see it. So if you would like to get baptized and become a part of this ministry, send an email to housejudah.elders@aol.com. Baptism - your location. We'll let you know when we'll be there, and we'll make a list to make sure that we get out there and get everybody baptized or organize something. Okay.
Another question.
Another question in the chat.
Let me get back to it. Okay.
It says, "What about a mature woman, never married, adult children, very independent?" Loaded question. Well, the first thing is first of all, you have to have a covering. That means that you need to be baptized under a particular church, under a leader, under an elder that can watch over your soul. That's their responsibility, is to watch over you. You can't make decisions on your own outside of spiritual guidance and leadership. So you get somebody that can represent you to make sure that that this whole situation is on the up and up, and to make sure that you guys' situation is on the up and no sin is involved and everything like that. So first is getting under a hedge, right? Getting under a hedge of leadership. Second, age isn't a huge factor, I believe, until the scriptures say, unless you're 60 years old.
Mm-hmm.
If you're 60 years old and you're not married, let it alone. You're an elder woman at that point, right? So at 60 years old, I believe, is when you remain unmarried. So if you're under the age of 60 and you would like to become married again, or you've never been married, the biggest thing is you have to figure out why that is.
Mm-hmm.
Why that is that you haven't been married, right? That's the biggest thing. So there's going to be counseling involved, because now that you're older and you've gotten used to being alone and being by yourself, that can be an issue for a man trying to come in and live with you, right? It can be very difficult. So understanding that there has to be a certain level of counseling involved, or whatever the case might be, counseling and guidance that's involved on your end to make sure that you're actually ready for that kind of commitment or transition, and who that transition and commitment is with. But a lot of times, understand, in marriage, there is no such thing as independent for either side. Everybody's dependent on somebody. Your children are dependent on you. You're dependent on your husband is dependent on Christ. Christ is dependent on the Most High. Everybody has to be dependent. So if you're ever in a situation, you can't be independent in a marriage. It's impossible. So all those things, as far as that's concerned, since it says deceased parents, if your parents passed away, in this particular situation, you get counsel. You get underneath the elder. You get underneath the hedge. You get some counseling. They talk through this entire thing, why you're in the position that you're in and not being married, and what would need to happen and what would need to change for you to be married, and the procedures and whatever the case might be. And then from that point, you would be able to move forward, accordingly. But that's a very good question. Very good question.
I see here that you may have another question.
No, she said, yeah, that's the same question. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All praises.
Shalom, brother.
Yeah, shalom.
Shalom, you and your family will be reaching out to you soon. Hopefully we'll see you pretty
Absolutely.
soon.
Yes, sir.
Brothers and sisters in Panama, shalom. Right? Do we have any other questions or comments? Any other questions or comments?
No.
And sisters, if you do have a child, bruh, don't settle. Don't do that. That's a dangerous thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
See, the thing is that you have a child, but that doesn't make your value any less.
Thank you.
Like the last thing you want to do is be like, well, I have a child, so I got to settle. No, what's going to happen is the right man is going to come along. He's going to see, okay, this is a virtuous woman, can't find that nowhere else. And you will be married. But what you can't do is rush the process or feel as though you don't deserve better because you have a child. No, that's not the way that works. It doesn't make your value any less. So
right.
Be patient and let the Most High bring you what you were supposed to have in the first place.
That's
right. So, yeah, I mean, I've seen it time and time again, great and powerful men in this work and outside of this work, where their first two children aren't theirs, but they have a happy marriage. They have their children. The children that they take care of are no different than their own. So listen, there ain't just because you have a child and not make you any less than somebody who doesn't. Right. So
that's right.
Elder, you got anything before we go?
That's it. That's the way to wrap it up.
All right.
All right. Bless you all. Don't miss out on part 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a banger.
Man,
right.
3 hours and 40 minutes. We got another one. All right. Shalom, everybody. We love you. Stay prayed up. Stay vigilant. And we'll talk to you all soon. Oh wait, hold on.
Else?
We're gonna give an update on some of the things that are going on in the world, especially as it pertains to the food, different things like that. And this whole war thing that's happening. We'll let the people know how to prepare. We're getting something ready for that as well. So shalom, everybody. Shabbat shalom.
Shalom. Wait a minute. I got something else here. Another question. Let's see.
Oh, shalom. How to do the Philippines? Shalom, Bishop Michael.
Shalom.
Shalom, Bishop Michael, Elder Johannes, and Deacon Isaac. Shalom to you all out there. We'll see you all soon. Okay, we'll be having a conversation.
Shabbat shalom, family. Let's get out of here.